Part 78. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 772. Touching the sawtooth of the omniscient scroll, Rudolph felt a little regretful that this omniscient authority was actually broken. It was this broken omniscient authority that made Rudolph's path to becoming a wizard smooth. His mind moved slightly, and a line of words appeared on the omniscient scroll. This line of words was the question he wanted to ask. Where is Mercury? Ptolemy, the omniscient one, spent 12 years hunting down and killing Mercury. He died 121 years ago. Rudolph took a breath. Did Ptolemy have to spend 12 years hunting down Mercury? That senior is really admirable. However, this also proves that although Ptolemy is invincible, as long as he runs fast and doesn't give him the opportunity to be invincible, he will also have a headache. Rudolph asked another key question. Why was I chosen by Mercury? Or, why was I chosen by the omniscience scroll? The omniscience that knows everything, only the unknown can control the known. You came from the void, you are born the unknown of this world, and all the known knowledge cannot explain your appearance. When you appear, the omniscience scroll floating in the void automatically enters your soul. The unknown controls the known? Is this saying that the identity of the traverser is unknown? It seems that the identity of the traverser has brought enough benefits to himself. Why can the evil god fraud take away the other half of the omniscience scroll? Is he also a traverser, and is he different like me? The omniscience that knows everything, the evil god fraud does not fully grasp the omniscience scroll, and he used some fraudulent means to cheat the other half of the omniscience scroll. So, the evil god fraud's use of the omniscience scroll is not as good as his own. Why did you become a star map? If other apostles get you, will you have other forms? Omniscience, if an alchemist gets me, I will become a book of knowledge. If a druid gets me, I will become a wise salmon. If a knight gets me, I will become a heroic soul heritage. If a wizard gets me, I will become a star map. The omniscience scroll gave a long list of answers, confirming Rudolph's guess. He is a wizard, so the omniscience looks like a star map in the early stage. If he is another apostle, the omniscience will become the corresponding knowledge carrier. Write out the 8th level Cassiopeia secret formula. Omniscience, the circumpolar Cassiopeia secret formula is. The omniscience scroll gave the Cassiopeia secret formula. This feeling is great. All the knowledge that has ever appeared can be obtained from the omniscience scroll. He just exchanged 4 level 8 relics for 12 suspended stars, and he can choose 4 rewards from them. Before choosing the reward, the star map disappeared. If he wants, he can know the contents of all 12 options. Rudolph asked again, where is the other half of the omniscience scroll? Where is the evil god fraud? Omniscience, the omniscience scroll is unknown and is held by the evil god fraud. Fraud, who holds the other half of the omniscience scroll, is Rudolph's biggest enemy. I don't know the other half of omniscience, so can the fragment of omniscience obtained by fraud know my information? Omniscience, the omniscience scroll, you are also unknown to the other half of omniscience. Very good, both parties are equal in front of the omniscience scroll, like a black hole, unable to know each other, unable to explore each other. What's the difference between you and the other half of omniscience? The omniscience that knows everything. I am the omniscience scroll of the material world. I know all the knowledge that has ever existed. The other half of omniscience is the omniscience scroll of the spiritual world. The spiritual omniscience can know any thoughts and thoughts. You once obtained the full moon whisper in the early days of wizardry, which is the remnant of spiritual omniscience. You can hear the thoughts of others, but they are very vague and unclear. If you get all the omniscience scrolls, you will master both material omniscience and spiritual omniscience at the same time. The omniscience scroll is actually divided into material omniscience and spiritual omniscience. Material omniscience brought Rudolph all the wizard knowledge. Spiritual omniscience sounds very powerful. No one has secrets in front of fraud. No wonder fraud can play with people's hearts. He can know what others are thinking, and of course he can complete fraud. If fraud is allowed to master the power of omniscience, omniscience is combined with fraud. I dare not imagine how terrifying he will become. Rudolph took out a card. Why did fraud find me so early? Didn't he know the other half of omniscience? Omniscience knows everything. Fraud has been looking for the other half of omniscience for the past 200 years. Including now, he has marked 19 suspected omnisciences, and you are the one who looks most like omniscience. Your promotion speed is too fast, so it has attracted fraud's attention. Being too good also has disadvantages. It is easy to be targeted. Rudolph's fingertips ignited blue sparks, burning the fraud card into ashes. In an ordinary house in Danny City, fraud priest Chi-Te suddenly opened his eyes. He murmured. Has the broken other half of the omniscience scroll finally been completed? Furnace, it's you. Thank you for completing the other half of the omniscience scroll for me. It's worth my help. If it weren't for me, the bald white demon would have wanted to kill you himself. Rudolph didn't know that Fraud Mercy had helped him stop the evil god's attack. He was still answering questions with the omniscience scroll. He asked the most essential question of the war in the northern continent: what is the power of destruction? When will it appear? The all-knowing omniscience, the power of destruction has already appeared. It is the enriched uranium bomb made by the 9th-level alchemist Stein, and it is also the fat man and little boy you named. According to the existing reserves of the northern continent, alchemists can make more than 30,000 fat men. A grand destruction is the power of destruction. Many people plan to live forever in destruction. Rudolph's head suddenly broke out in cold sweat. Could it be? Could it be that Ptolemy, Emperor Megwen, the evil god, and others are waiting for Stein's experiment? They are fully capable of completely destroying Zealba in a shorter time. The royal midnight knights of the Megwen Empire can push Zealba flat, and the early advent of the true god of the evil god cult can also destroy Zealba. The pillar of creation has not even had a wizard set foot on Zealba. They have not put in their full efforts. It turns out that the nuclear bomb is the power of destruction they are waiting for. When will Ptolemy enter? Omniscience, please forgive me, I cannot predict the future. Omniscience is the known omniscience. Rudolph was stunned. The power of omniscience actually has such a big flaw. The omniscience motto says that everything in the past must be known. Omniscience cannot predict the future. But Rudolph himself can guess that it is not the time for Ptolemy to enter. Stein only made 2 nuclear bombs, which is a big gap from the 30,000 predicted by the omniscience. Without enough nuclear bombs, there will be no feast of destruction, and those real big men will not enter. With 30,000 nuclear bombs, I don't know if there are 30,000 cities in the northern continent. He asked again, when does Ptolemy usually appear? Ptolemy is the lord of Mars, who knows everything. In normal time, he is Mars in people's eyes. All power has a price. After the natural lifespan ends, immortality must meet the corresponding conditions before it can come. As the Lord of Mars who holds the power of war, the total time he comes is equal to the sum of the wartime in the world. Rudolph nodded. It turned out that Ptolemy did not stay on the Arctic glacier all the time. He had a total time limit for coming. No wonder he needed the pillar of creation to start a war for him. As long as the war lasted for a few years, he could add a few years to his coming to the world. In this way, it took Ptolemy 12 years to kill Mercury, which made Mercury even more powerful. Rudolph asked again, how to be promoted to a 9th-level Zodiac Scorpio wizard. The all-knowing omniscience, to be promoted to a 9th-level Zodiac wizard, needs to hold a grand forbidden spell ceremony. In the forbidden spell ceremony, you can be promoted to a 9th-level Zodiac wizard by turning a certain witch language into a forbidden spell that belongs to you. Scorpio Forbidden Spell Ceremony. Time Scorpio month in November. Astrological map Scorpio 9-pointed star that can cover a city. Which language? A certain Scorpio. Which language? Participants at least 50,000 people. Process use which language to create a carnival of more than 50,000 people. Forbidden spell in the star power fed back by 50,000 people, the which language is promoted to a forbidden spell. Looking at this forbidden spell ceremony, Rudolph felt a headache. Why did he feel that this forbidden spell ceremony was a bit like an evil god? Why at least 50,000 people? The omniscient omniscience, the upper limit of individual energy is very low, and the essence of strength is to gather the power of more people. This power can be the power of life or the power of death. It can be contributed by the living or by the moment of death. After a few seconds of silence, Rudolph asked, "Is plundering the only way to become stronger?" The omniscient omniscience, your description is correct. There is an upper limit to the strength of individuals, which can be achieved by virtues such as hard work and self-discipline. However, being far stronger than others comes from plundering others. Amazing wealth and strength can only come from endless plundering. The omniscience knows so much that he actually summed up such a law. He held several papal scepters that could not be included in the star map and asked, "How do I use these level 9 scepters?" The all-knowing omniscience, combined with the current environment, these scepters can be combined into a powerful magic weapon, the level 9 radiation scepter, also known as the level 9 amplification scepter, which can provide a powerful amplification effect on witchcraft. Please summon the fairy king Hercules, who has temporarily possessed level 9 strength, to make this scepter. Rudolph looked at the production method. A wizard had made an amplification scepter before. Find an environment with a radiation source, such as next to a uranium mine. He is now in the center of a nuclear bomb explosion, and there is radiation around. The figure of the fairy king Hercules appeared, floating behind Rudolph, providing Rudolph with a magnificent star power. A large triangle of stars appeared in front of him, with 6 scepters floating in the triangle. Rudolph made a magic weapon according to the method provided by the Omniscience Scroll. Scorpio. Which language? Radiation was the first to play a role. This was Rudolph's new witch language. It's good to have an Omniscience Scroll, and all witch languages are easy to use. He is the omniscient one who knows all the secrets of the past. Within a radius of more than 10 kilometers, all the radiation energy suddenly gathered towards the astrological triangle, squeezing the 6 scepters together in a principle that Rudolph could not understand. Under the influence of the Scorpio star power, the 6 scepters softened like spiral vines and twisted into a wooden scepter as tall as a person. There was a red gem on the top of the scepter, and the gem was glowing red. Wait, Rudolph suddenly asked, can I also make 6 level 9 magic weapons? Omniscient, yes, you can also make 6 level 9 magic weapons. The power is not as good as the level 9 amplification scepter, but it is more flexible. Why didn't you say it earlier? Omniscient, if you asked earlier, I would have said it earlier. Shit FXXK code. Omniscient, these languages cannot be translated. Please repeat them in the language of this world. You make me look like a retard. Omniscient, if you know yourself, you are not a retard. If I wasn't afraid of breaking the scroll of omniscience again, I really wanted to give him a stick. Take a few days off to think about the ending, and upgrade to level 9 directly after returning. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 773. After the earth-shattering explosion, the airships of the Constitutional Army flew towards the mushroom cloud. The Word Spirit staff officer and the Word Spirit witch hunter gathered together, sweating and arguing fiercely. They got the divination, but the result was so bizarre that they did not dare to report it to their superiors. The superiors were also very anxious. There were still more than 10 kilometers from the center of the explosion. They did not know whether to speed up or approach slowly after reconnaissance. The word spirits had to report a divination result that they thought was the most conservative. The Garan region escaped the fate of destruction, and the fate of destruction fell on the head of the evil god Expeditionary Force. After this divination was sent to the bow of the flagship, Joel was a little confused. Destruction? The destruction of the evil god Expeditionary Force. That was the evil god Expeditionary Force with several level 9 popes and more than a dozen level 8 cardinal priests. How could it be destroyed? Joel looked at Yvonne next to him. Miss Yvonne, do you think Mr. Furness really used the level 9 alchemical weapon to destroy the evil god Expeditionary Army? Yvonne was still frightened by the terrifying scale of the mushroom cloud. If it were me, I would definitely not survive in such an explosion. Even the level 8 werewolves with the strongest survivability could not survive. It seems that the power of the level 9 alchemical weapon is far greater than the level 8 giant air blast bomb. Joel issued an order to the staff officer behind him. There are many priests in the evil god army. If there are fish that slip through the net, Mr. Furness may be a little tired alone. Let's go and help. Mr. Furness has helped us detonate the alchemical weapon. The finishing work cannot be troubled by Mr. Consultant anymore. The airship troops began to accelerate, and Yvonne carefully sensed the surrounding environment. When she parted with Rudolph just now, Rudolph said that the level 9 alchemical weapon would leave strong radiation, but until now, she has not felt the radiation. She thought in her heart that maybe Rudolph had completed the treatment of the radiation. After more than 20 minutes of flight, we finally arrived at the explosion site. When the Constitutional Army arrived at the center of the explosion, the mushroom cloud had almost dispersed. What came into view was a terrifying ruin. There were no trees or stones in this ruin with a radius of several kilometers. There was no protrusion on the ground, just like being pushed by a sharp razor. The ground was exposed with the color of the soil. The closer to the center of the explosion, the lower the ground was, forming a deeper and deeper pit. Joel saw the furnace consultant floating in the air. The furnace consultant held a scepter as high as a person, and the top of the scepter was a gem with a red glow. Joel had some research on ores, and he saw what the gem looked like. The gem reminded people of a band gem. More than 100 years ago, someone made a beautiful pendant with calcium uranium mica, but later it was discovered that the gem had radiation and was harmful to the human body, so it was banned by alchemists. Joel felt that for the furnace, even if it was really calcium uranium mica, it would not be a big deal. The airship landed, and Joel asked hurriedly, "Mr. Consultant, where are the priests of the evil god cult?" Take a breath. Joel took a deep breath after hearing this. After you're done, what's next? You sucked in the priests. Ah, Joel's expression changed from doubt to confusion. What? I sucked in the priests. He thought of a result, but found it unbelievable, and an awkward smile appeared on his face. Furnace Consultant, I know it's safe now, but your hell joke is not funny at all. After a moment, Joel suddenly reacted. You mean? Could it be? Really? Yes, all the priests have been vaporized. All, from the Pope to the low-level priests, have been vaporized by the little boy. What is the little boy? Rudolph realized that he had not yet communicated with Joel about the information related to the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb, and he added, "Oh, Commander-in-Chief Stein has created a level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb, and the little boy is the code name I gave to the alchemical nuclear bomb." It must be said that when new weapons are introduced, they always have unexpected effects. Where is the Pope? Where is the Pope of the evil god cult? The trapped Pope Eugen, the white magic Pope Michael, the painful Pope Cardoso. Stop. There is no need to report it. I can't remember it, and there is no need to remember it. Rudolph shook the amplification scepter in his hand and said, "The popes you mentioned are all here. Except for the fraudulent pope, the remaining 6 popes are all here in an orderly manner. Here. This is a level 9 magic weapon made from the relics of 6 popes. The materials are exquisite and extremely luxurious. I even regret it now. It is a bit of a waste. Look carefully at this scepter. It is made of 6 twigs spiraling together. Each twig is a pope. Joel swallowed his saliva and asked with difficulty, 120,000 priests and believers, the evil god army and several churches, a total of 120,000 evil god expeditionary forces, are they all dead? Rudolph nodded. It makes me look like a murderer, but this is all the credit of the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb. I am just a delivery man. The killing range of more than 10 kilometers in diameter, the power of the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb is much greater than I imagined. The evil god cult never thought that there was such a powerful weapon. They gathered together and no one survived. Ignoring the stunned Joel, Rudolph waved to Hit and Ahriman. Hit came to Rudolph, and Ahriman also came to Rudolph and heard Rudolph's instructions. There are 120,000 relics of priests of all levels, so the wizards of the Blood Vengeance Army and Scavenger can find them by themselves. The relics of priests at level 4 and below will belong to whoever finds them. The relics of level 5 and above will be collected together and handed over to me, and will be distributed as needed in the future. Go ahead, this is a day worth remembering and you will never see it again in your life. After thinking about it, Rudolph added, I take back the last sentence. You may encounter it a second or third time in the future, but it will definitely not be as shocking as the first time. Hit and Ahriman were as stunned as Joel when they heard this arrangement. Hit said quickly, Mr. Advisor, please rest assured that I will never let the wizards of the Blood Vengeance Army fight, and I will maintain their order. The wizards who had received the arrangement started to move. They quickly rushed to the afterlife and began to scavenge. The ground is full of relics of the priests. This is the wizard's feast. Hit observed for a while. The fight between wizards and soldiers that he was worried about did not appear. Instead, another situation occurred. Relics of level 5 and above must also be picked up. Just because these relics have to be handed over, no one will ignore them. Hit turned to look at the scavenger wizards. Obviously the scavenger wizards were more qualified. They would not let relics of level 5 and above be left on the ground. Ivan came to Rudolph. Rudolph, what is the strong radiation you are talking about? Didn't you tell me to pay attention to radiation before? Why can't I feel the radiation? Oh, this amplifying scepter is also called a radiation scepter. It is a witchcraft made in a radiation field. When the witchcraft is made, the surrounding radiation energy is quickly absorbed, so there is no radiation nearby. The amplifying scepter can amplify the effects of my forbidden spells and witchcraft, and can further enhance the strength of the 9th level apostle. Unfortunately, I am only an 8th level wizard now and cannot fully exert the effect of this witchcraft. Joel always felt that the scene in front of him was a bit unreal. The Forge advisor was studying his newly acquired scepter. Miss Yvonne tried to touch the gems on the scepter, and was most interested in the red gem. The little wizard scattered around, picking up the relics. His constituent officers and soldiers looked at each other, don't know what to do. It seemed that the destruction of the evil god's expeditionary force had little to do with his officers and soldiers. As a result, his officers and soldiers had doubts and confusion on their faces, and they didn't even know what the explosion just meant. Joel quickly ordered, the staff organization will measure the power of level 9 alchemical nuclear bombs. Obtain detailed observation data as soon as possible. Accumulate valuable experience for the future use of alchemical nuclear bombs. After hearing Joel's arrangement, Rudolph just wanted to say something to Joel, but gave up his idea. In previous lives, nuclear bombs were used very cautiously, and they would not be used rashly except for extremely serious crimes. However, the world has not yet established this consensus and has not achieved terror deterrence. He felt that 11 Elba was so miserable. The alchemy nuclear bomb could vent their anger and hatred, so he could let them be happy for a while longer. This little bit of sweetness is to compensate for them. Years of war have devastated this country, and it has also given rise to this terrifying mass murder weapon. The giant mushroom cloud cannot be hidden. The nearby temple saw it, and the nearby Black Gold Institute also saw it. A terrible news quickly spread across the northern and southern continents. Stein, the commander-in-chief of the West Elba Constitutional Army, was officially promoted to a level 9 alchemist. His promotion experiment was to invent a level 9 alchemical weapon. This weapon has many names: level 9 alchemically enriched uranium bomb, level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb, or the internal name that has been circulated, Little Boy. The first result of the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb was the implementation of the level 8 Gongji Immortal King Wizard Furnace, sneaking into the Evil God Expeditionary Force, and detonating the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb. The alchemical nuclear bomb carried terrible radiation damage, killing 6 popes directly. Not even the insect nest pope could escape the level 9 alchemical radiation. When the hive pope was resurrected in the brood, he was completely unable to control cell division and turned into a proliferating cancer tissue sarcoma and died in the brood. 11 cardinal priests and 120,000 priests from the southern continent were killed in the explosion. With a terrifying killing range of more than 10 kilometers in diameter, the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb is like a demon from hell. In the temples in the northern continent, the shock of the power of faith made the priests stationed tremble. A level 9 alchemy nuclear bomb is so powerful. The biggest feature of an alchemist's weapon is its energy production. What will be the effect if more than a dozen alchemy nuclear bombs are detonated? How to fight this? The temples of the evil god cult are filled with orders to find deceitful priests. The gods want to contact the evil god of fraud and the goddess of wisdom. Although I don't want to, in this situation, I must turn to the goddess of wisdom. In the palace of East Elba, the young King Wenlun put down the information and hurriedly summoned Duke Unicorn and Duke Golden Anchor. It was so terrifying that he wanted to relegate all the warring factions in the palace to the seaside to defend the coastline. Those warring factions actually want him to avenge Carloman XVI and his uncle? How to take revenge? To the north of West Elba, the Royal Giant Corps built a camp, and now the Royal Night Knights have settled in. This night group is now organizing a small group of troops to train with werewolves in the wilderness. The name is to improve the night level and prepare for the next war. There was an extremely luxurious tent in the camp, with Emperor Mogwen and Mogwen IX sitting on high-backed chairs. The camp was empty, except for the voices of 2 people echoing. Royal astrologer Hermes is reporting to Mogwen IX. Your Majesty, Stein completed the level 9 alchemy experiment, and he made a level 9 alchemy weapon. The power of that weapon is astonishing, with a killing range of more than 10 kilometers. Its appearance can directly change the future war situation. Mogwen IX was a burly middle-aged man with a thick black beard. His black beard was so thick that Hermes couldn't see clearly whether the emperor was nodding. Mogwen IX said, "You are right, that weapon will profoundly change the situation of war. More than 200 years ago, the alchemists took away the rule from the knights, and now they will take away the knights' power. This is the swan song of the knights on the mainland. If that weapon is mass-produced, then the knights will no longer have room to survive. Even my guardian chains can only protect tens of thousands of polar night knights. In the face of such alchemical weapons, I can resist, but my knight will be wiped out. Therefore," Hermes continued, "therefore, Your Majesty, we must obtain the authority of eternal life. Use the authority of eternal life to transform the Mogwen Empire and continue the glory of the Mogwen Empire." Mogwen IX nodded. This was the most satisfying thing about Hermes. His royal astrologers, at all times, truly believed that the glory of the empire was above all else. He asked, "Has the authority of destruction appeared?" Hermes replied, "Your Majesty, the power of destruction lies in that terrifying level 9 alchemy weapon. In a feast of destruction, the authority of destruction will be born. If we sit idly by and do nothing, the alchemists who create level 9 alchemical nuclear bombs will have the power of destruction. Everything is in chaos. Since Ptolemy snatched the eternal authority that belonged to the giants, the 12 eternal authorities have been in fatal chaos. If the alchemist is given the power to destroy, then the alchemist's weapons will be even more terrifying. I have a vague feeling that maybe one day in the future, alchemists will have the ability to remotely destroy a kingdom. Emperor Mogwen was silent for a while and asked, "What plans do other kingdoms have now?" Hermes replied, "Your Majesty, the first ones to be unsettled now are the United States of Cantal and the United Carolingian States." The two alchemist states asked West Elba to share the secret of level 9 alchemical weapons with them. The Pillars of Creation also announced a fatal piece of news. They said that 70% of the reserves of uranium ore, the raw material for making level 9 alchemy nuclear bombs, is located in the Luberon region of West Elba. The wizards of the Pillars of Creation are wandering among various forces. They also contacted us and said that the uranium ore in the Luberon region must be divided up, otherwise the United States of Western Elba will completely destroy the northern continent. Hermes added with certainty, "Dear Your Majesty, there is no doubt that whoever masters the manufacturing methods of uranium ore and level 9 alchemical nuclear bombs will have the power to destroy." Some were happy and some were worried. When the news reached the basement on the outskirts of Luberon, Stein had a smile on his face. Finally putting down the heavy burden on his shoulders, he leaned back on the chair and fell into a deep sleep. After a long time, he suddenly woke up again. The cancer had metastasized to his pancreas and liver, and he was in too much pain and too tired. Lying on the table, he insisted on writing a will. This was his last concern for Elba. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 774. Dark clouds hang over the city of Malvern, the capital city of the province of Malvern. To the south of the city of Malvern is the Iron Wall, and to the south of the Iron Wall is the Eagle Beak Peninsula. The city was huge, with a population of more than 100,000 at its peak. This used to be a peaceful city. There were no special products here, and it mainly relied on logistics transfer to make money. Malvern was once known for its train drivers, who traveled around West Elba and took their wages home to support their wives and children. Fathers bring their sons, sons bring their relatives, and relatives bring their classmates. In many cities, there will be a clustering and concentration of industries. Malvern is such a city. The locomotive maintenance technology here is also the best in West Elba. The impoverished church has not yet organized the railway network in Malvern province, leaving train drivers with no work to do. I heard that the Church of Trouble will accept all railway networks, and there will be no need for drivers in Malvern. Low-level priests of trouble will be the train drivers. If there is no big change, Malvern will no longer be known as a train driver, but will become an ordinary painful church city. Some people fled, some were sacrificed, and a large number of believers were added to the southern continent, so that there are still 80,000 people in the city. This city is the forward base of the evil god cult after leaving the Eagle Beak Peninsula. All supplies and reserve soldiers are gathered in Malvern city. Rudolph appears on the outskirts of Malvern. He passed by Malvern before and looked at the city from the station. Everything has changed. I wonder if it is the filter brought by the clouds. The clouds are very low, hundreds of meters high, the buildings are dark, the tallest towers have collapsed, and half of the ruins prove their former glory. Just looking at it makes me feel so depressed that I can't breathe. Rudolph used the amplification scepter to impose absolute invisibility on himself, improving the effect of absolute invisibility, and then slowly walked into the city. This is the city chosen by Rudolph to complete his promotion ceremony and to complete his level 9 Scorpio forbidden spell. After the evil god expeditionary force was wiped out, the constitutional army recovered small cities one after another. Ordinary small cities cannot release the hatred accumulated by the constitutional army. Only this provincial capital can allow the constitutional army to complete a hearty revenge. In the city of Malvern, there is the temple of the Church of Pain. The amplification scepter is indeed a witchcraft made from 6 level 9 relics. After entering Malvern city, he did not feel palpitations in his heart and no tingling between his eyebrows, which proved that his actions were not discovered by the temple. The Church of Pain lost the Pope and 2 cardinal priests, and more importantly, a large number of priests died. The losses were huge, resulting in the Temple of Pain not being as strong as before. The more priests and believers there are, the stronger the temple becomes. The two parties have a symbiotic relationship. At this time, all the stationed priests were kneeling and worshipping around the temple. They did not join the expeditionary force, but consolidated the parish for the Redeemer. Their main job was to develop everyone into believers, then develop divine servants among believers, and select priests among divine servants. Their garrison mission was completed very well, and the transformation of Malvern city was very thorough. Not only were the resident priests kneeling on the streets around the temple, believers and servants of the gods left their houses and knelt throughout the city. The information of the evil god religion was transmitted very quickly. All the armies led by several popes on the front line were wiped out. This news was immediately spread to the city of Malvern. If the temple hadn't released this news, no priest would have believed that so many high-ranking priests would have died instantly. The expeditionary force of the Church of Pain suffered heavy losses, and everyone was waiting for the evil god Pain to send a miracle, and for the gift of the Redeemer. According to the cardinal priests stationed there, the Redeemer will directly designate him as the Pope and use divine power to directly upgrade the priests' levels and create at least 2 cardinal priests. A large number of priests were lost on the front line, and the evil god needed to instill new priests with faith. Believers knelt in the streets, waiting for the temple sacrifices to end. Now there are no unbelievers as sacrifices, so we have to sacrifice those believers who are not very firm in their faith. As for whose faith is firm and whose faith is not firm, it all depends on their relationship with the lower-level priests. Low-level priests are like slaves in front of high-level priests, but in front of believers, they are the masters who can decide the life and death of believers with one word. If believers offer some benefits to low-level priests, then they can become steadfast believers. A few days ago, female believers rushed to give whips to priests. If selected, the female believer can howl, cry, and burst into tears as much as she wants. They may receive a promise from the priest of pain that their faith is firm and that they will not be sacrificed. When the pain priest left, they huddled in the corner and looked at the city center with fear. Alchemists like to popularize education and promote basic education. Only qualified workers can complete the work in the factory. They were clearly not like this before, but since reciting the salvation scriptures on the stone tablets, their spirits have been affected by the power of faith, and their behavior has become increasingly weird and difficult to understand. Even they themselves hate themselves. This is beyond their control. The power of faith and scriptures will affect their spirits, shatter their self-esteem, and make them look like dogs wagging their tails in front of the priests and temples. The male believers offered their wealth. They sent all the wealth they could get to the priests, just to pray for a chance not to sacrifice them. Or, male believers can go to the priest's house to be slaves, or they can say it in a nicer way and pray for a chance to become a servant of God. The train drivers no longer study steam locomotives, but compete to study the salvation scriptures, repeatedly self-mutilate, face the temple, and pray for more faith to enter their bodies. Some people with good talents can automatically awaken to become servants of God even without the reward of the priest. Male believers hate the priests, but they look forward to becoming priests. If they become priests one day, they must bring whips, enjoy more female believers, and let more male believers be his dogs. Compared with the evil god cult, even the knights seem much gentler, and the alchemists are like saints. In fact, the parish of the evil god cult is the true appearance of being ruled by superpowers. When the apostles have superpowers, ordinary people without superpowers are worse than slaves. Slaves still have the opportunity to rebel, and ordinary people have no ability to resist except crying and begging for mercy. The inability to resist means that there is no value in the united front, and there is no need to pay a little benefit or make a little concession to these ants who have no ability to resist. The sins in the hearts of the superpowers are completely released, and this is the hell of ordinary people. After the notice of sacrifice was issued, Malvern City became such a hell. Today is the day of sacrifice, and the chaotic hell has become an orderly hell. The believers with firm faith survived, and the believers with unfirm faith are about to be sacrificed to the Lord of Redemption. The believers knelt on the ground, trembling. Some people were relieved. After days of torture, they thought that sacrificing to the Lord of Redemption was really a relief. Some were trembling with fear. They knew more and understood that after the sacrifice, they would die, and would not enter the kingdom of redemption as the priests advertised. Low-level priests occasionally shuttled among the believers, looking for believers with unfirm faith as spare sacrifices for sacrifice. Rudolph wore a cloak, covered his face with a hood, and walked in Malvern City with a radiation scepter, walking among the kneeling believers. Painful believers can make people have physiological stress reactions. There is no complete person here. They self-mutilate in front of the temple and leave disabilities. This kind of self-mutilation is not a one-time thing. As their faith deepens, the self-mutilation injuries on their bodies will become more and more serious. High-level pain priests will create wounds that keep pus flowing on their bodies, so that they can feel the salvation brought by pain at any time. They enjoy pus, they show off pus, and they compete with pus. After walking for more than 10 minutes, Rudolph made a judgment that the city was ruined, completely ruined. Even if the constitutional army recaptures this big city, even if the believers here no longer believe in the evil god of pain, they don't have much labor ability. It will take a long time for the believers here to restore their normal will. But who made the constitutional army lose the city? This is the responsibility of the alchemists. As the rulers of the country, they have the responsibility and obligation to restore this place to normal. Speaking of which, Rudolph seems to have a little responsibility. After all, he is too weak, otherwise this place would not have become a painful parish. Hatred, Rudolph wants to release hatred here, release hatred for the church, and let the believers get rid of the shackles of faith in hatred. Rudolph walked along the street, tapping the ground with his staff one after another. Each time he tapped, a red mark would be left on the ground, and the mark contained Rudolph's Scorpio power. Every time he left a Scorpio mark, he needed to get out of absolute concealment. The omniscient scroll told him a witchcraft, faith shielding. The radiation staff made with several level 9 scepters of the Pope can shield the faith radiation of the temple. Even the evil god does not know that there is a wizard in his city. Possessing partial omniscience, Rudolph has the most important information advantage. The evil god is not as good as Rudolph in some obscure knowledge. If he wants, if there is still, to detonate an alchemical nuclear bomb here, he can directly send away all the priests and believers. After walking around the periphery twice, Rudolph finally drew the outer double rings of the Scorpio 9-pointed star. Next, he will go deep into the interior of Malvern and draw the internal pattern of the 9-pointed star. After going deep into the city, Rudolph saw more dense believers, more dense servants, and more priests. Rudolph couldn't even put his feet here. He saw the priests of other evil gods, even Kundan, Mo, and other priests kneeling in the Temple of Pain in the city center. It seems that the death of the Pope and the cardinal priest has caused a lot of mental trauma to these priests. Without the 9th level Pope, These priests don't even have the opportunity to return to the South Continent. A priest was lying on the ground, and he suddenly heard a dull sound beside him, like someone's cane fell to the ground. He turned his head quickly and found nothing. However, a red spot appeared on his side. He was very sure that there was no such spot here before. He looked up in the direction of the temple, hoping that the new pope would appear as soon as possible. He had hallucinations. It must be the weakness of the church that made his faith unsteady, and he actually had hallucinations that shouldn't have. I don't know if it was dazzled. At a certain moment, he suddenly saw the back of a person. The street was full of people kneeling, and the man standing there stood out. In just a moment, the man's back disappeared, leaving only a dull echo in the silent street. As the nine-pointed star was drawn, Rudolph came to the city center. There is a large fountain square in the city center, which has been transformed into the Temple of Pain. The image of the evil god of pain is described as a redeemer who suffers for the world in the mud with iron nails all over his body. When he saw the Temple of Pain, Rudolph realized that the description was wrong. It was not mud, but pus. The main body of the temple is a pool, and the pool is not mud, but pus flowing from the central tumor. The pus is sticky and smelly, and bubbles ferment inside, which looks like mud. The tumor can be roughly seen as a human figure, with a disproportionately small head and a body that looks like many people's different organs pieced together. To sacrifice to pain, the sacrifice cuts off a part of his body, and then the remains of the sacrifice are gathered together to form an ugly tumor. From the joints of the remains, pus is constantly flowing, emitting a foul smell. Rudolph walked around the temple and carved a mark on the outside of the temple. As expected of the omniscient scroll, the witchcraft given was very powerful, and he was not exposed even around the temple. After completing the drawing of the Scorpio nine-pointed star, Rudolph looked at the painful tumor for a while and turned away. Ugly, disgusting, and nauseous, this was the biggest impression that the evil god's pain gave Rudolph. When he came to the outside of the city, Rudolph stood on the edge of the Scorpio nine-pointed star. This wizard array was so huge that it covered the entire city. He raised his scepter and fired 3 consecutive purple fireballs into the sky. This was a signal for action, a signal for counterattack. More than 400 airships fell from the sky and broke through the clouds. The priests looked up at the sky in horror. The height of the clouds was only a few hundred meters. Why did the temple have no reaction? Isn't the radiation range of the temple's faith as high as more than 9,000 meters? However, they discovered that the background of the sky turned red. The whole city seemed to be shrouded in some strange red, which gave people an ominous feeling. Is it this red light that shielded the radiation of the temple? What level of power can suppress the temple? Perhaps the temple had already discovered the approaching Constitution army, but the temple believed that he could defeat the Constitution army. A deep voice resounded throughout Malvern City. Scorpio forbidden spell. Bone-eroding revenge. The Scorpio witch language that can affect tens of thousands of people can resonate with tens of thousands of people. The only thing Rudolph can think of is the Scorpio witch language hatred. Under the attack of the evil god cult, Zirba retreated step by step, lost the Eagle's Beak province, lost the Malvern province, and lost the Gillen province. Countless Zirba people were sacrificed to the evil god, and each sacrifice required at least 10,000 sacrifices. Each sacrifice destroyed 10,000 families. After the sacrifice, the evil god cult will capture many people and force them to brainwash into believers. In the south of Zirba, 3 provinces and half of the Garon region were destroyed. This also means that half of the Garon region, no, the entire Garon region, harbors deep hatred for the evil god cult. At this moment, Rudolph wants to release this hatred, to amplify this hatred, to let the people of West Elba feel the joy of revenge. 2 chapters, a total of 8,000 words. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 775. The red light shines like a mask. Malvern City is shrouded in a red halo. If you look from a long distance, you can see a dark red light pillar appearing in Malvern City. The beam of light was ominous, enveloping all the priests and believers on the ground, as well as the constitutional army on the airship. After the Temple of Pain was established in Malvern City, a faint wailing sound has been floating over the city. It was the scream that the believers could not help but utter after they could not bear the pain. Under the background of this light beam, those wails were even more terrifying. Only Rudolph stood outside the pillar of light, standing on the edge of the Scorpio nine-pointed star. The light pillar is emitted by the nine-pointed star of Scorpio, and the red light reveals ominousness. Behind Rudolph are more than a dozen chains, which are connected to the void, and various constellations from the southern sky to the Arctic pole provide him with majestic star power. The star power of more than a dozen constellations in the sky was transformed by Rudolph into Rudolph's natal star power, the Scorpio star power, and poured into the beam of light. The witchcraft amplification scepter made from 6 level 9 relics amplified the star power effect, allowing Rudolph to envelope the entire city with his star power. The power of Scorpio's star is filled with hatred that is so strong that it cannot be resolved, and everyone is affected by hatred. People inside cannot see this beam of light. Everything they see is faintly red, as if they are wearing red sunglasses. If they look at each other, they can see bloodshot eyes. These dense red blood threads made their vision even redder. Breaking through the dark clouds, the airship troops of the Constitutional Army quickly lowered their altitude and entered the attack position. Of the more than 300 airships, only 120 are military airships, carrying weapons specifically designed for airships. The remaining 200 or so airships are civilian cargo airships found by the Constitutional Army. The civilian airship is filled with Army soldiers. These soldiers are infantry, artillery, and machine gunners. They are the entire force of the Garon region. All the soldiers' eyes were bloodshot and they stared at the priest on the ground with red eyes. In their eyes, the priests all looked abominable. It was these priests who destroyed most of the Garon region, causing them to lose their families and homes. Among them, the performance of the Blood Revenge Army was the most extreme. Before the battle began, their throats were already roaring like beasts. Their mouths were open, veins popped out in their temples, and every muscle on their faces was exerting force. Their fingers gripped the weapons tightly, their knuckles turned white, and they trembled angrily. The general staff officer was breathing heavily. He tried his best to adjust his condition and said to Joel beside him, "Commander-in-Chief, why do I feel something strange?" Joel stared at the temple in the center of the city and said, "Nothing unusual, so normal. The hatred that the Garon region has accumulated for so long will be explosively released today. Issue an order, all troops attack freely." The general staff officer felt that free attack was not the best attack strategy. At this time, we should attack the temple with all our strength, and then chase the priest freely after he lost his resistance. However, his reason quickly disappeared because he also wanted to rush down and shoot the priests himself. The military order on the flagship spread, completely unteeing the Constitutional Army. Everyone, every combat group, does not need to wait for orders from superiors. As long as they reach the attack tail throat, they will attack freely according to their own instinct. Some airships quickly landed outside the city and established artillery positions outside the city. Hatred is the best kind of adrenaline. The artillerymen felt no fear. In the past, the temple was a restricted area for the Constitutional Army, and it was a place that could never be approached. Now the soldiers of the Constitutional Army ignored the more than 10 kilometers of faith radiation range of the temple and set up artillery directly on the outskirts a few kilometers away from the temple. The artillerymen felt no fatigue, and every ordinary soldier was stimulated by adrenaline. The heavy shells seemed to have no weight, and there was even a scene of 2 people running wildly carrying a cannon of several hundred kilograms. The artillerymen just want to hit the enemy hard, and even if they exchange one life for another, they feel that it is worth it. Some airships landed on the roof, dropped the machine gunners, and let the machine gunners set up machine gun positions on the roof. Starting from the outskirts of the city, machine gun positions were established one after another. Boxes of ammunition were thrown onto the roof, and the machine gunners set up machine guns on the roof and fired impatiently into the surrounding streets. The machine gunner's mouth was drooling, his eyes were wide open, and he pressed the trigger like a madman. The muzzle of the machine gun sprayed flames, and the bullets connected in a line and shot at the priests on the street. Some airships were dropping bombs, and even the logistics personnel on the airships came to the deck, carrying bombs and throwing them down. Raise the bomb high above your head, and then drop the bomb hard. If there is no bomb, tie up the grenade and throw it down with all your strength, while throwing all kinds of curses in your mouth. Bombs roared down one after another, hitting the streets, hitting the houses, and hitting the priests and believers on the ground. After the priests and believers on the suburban streets were killed, the constitutional army put the infantry on the streets and let the infantry advance step by step. The infantrymen used grenades and rifles to clear away the remaining priests. Hatred is the source of power, and hatred inspires human potential. This is the first effect of Scorpio's forbidden spell, Bone Erosion Revenge, Ultimate Potential. As for the Apostle, the effect of this forbidden curse is even more obvious. Stimulated by hatred, the apostles found that their abilities had been improved in all aspects. They were like knights on the battlefield, feeling that they were getting stronger as they fought. The sorcery of the blood-vengeful army wizards has become stronger. The fire created by the fire wizard is almost 1.5 times more powerful than usual. The armor-piercing bullet controlled by the wind wizard can directly destroy the stronghold of the Church of Pain with one shot. The armor-piercing bullet has stronger kinetic energy, and the thick wall is completely unable to resist the armor-piercing bullet blessed by the wind magic. The alchemist's alchemy has become stronger, and the bombs strengthened by alchemy have an explosion range of 1.5 times the usual. All the apostles in the Constitution Army have experienced the beauty of knights. The potential of their bodies has been thoroughly stimulated, and the power of the apostles has become stronger and more powerful, gushing and releasing. The soldiers fought heartily, because when the Constitution Army was taking revenge, the priests could not organize an effective resistance. The Scorpio forbidden spell Bone Erosion Revenge, there is a second effect, blinded by hatred. The priests on the ground had no time to take care of the Constitution Army, and they themselves fell into chaos first. Rudolph walked through the city and left red marks when he drew the Scorpio 9-pointed star. Each red mark was gushing blood-red mist. These blood-like mists played a very strange role. In the blood mist, the priests fell into a brief confusion and stood still. Some past memories appeared clearly in their minds. The abnormal reactions of the painful priests and believers were so great. When they became believers, they all experienced great pain. When they were forced to seek help from the Lord of Redemption. For the painful priests, self-mutilation is a means of replacing greater pain with less pain and diverting attention. Now, those painful memories came to their minds again. They remembered the priests who forced them to become believers, and they remembered the enemies who destroyed their families. The red light in the sky represents that hatred can inspire people's potential for revenge. The blood mist on the ground represents that hatred finally invaded people's consciousness, completely making people lose their minds and become monsters who only know revenge. This night belongs to hatred. A painful believer suddenly jumped up from the ground. He completely lost his mind, forgot about respect and inferiority, and forgot that the sacrifice was not over yet, because he saw the low-level priest who forced him to become a believer and forced him to cut off his left hand. He lost his mind. No matter whether he was in the sacrifice or not, no matter whether his enemy was a noble priest or not, no matter the difference in strength between them, he just wanted to rush up and take revenge. His eyes were red and he rushed forward angrily. Unfortunately, his strength was really low, and the priest's iron nail pierced his chest. The priest was much stronger than him, and the believer was just an ordinary person who was brainwashed and did not have the power of an apostle in his body. However, this believer did not feel any pain. This time it was not the Lord of Redemption who helped him forget the pain. He was not a priest and could not enjoy the power of faith. It was hatred that helped him. He stretched out his hand and pinched the priest's neck fiercely. The iron nail that passed through his chest had no effect on his strength. The adrenaline brought by hatred made him feel no pain. The first believer rushed over, followed by believers one after another. These believers all had a grudge against the priest. In their tragedy, the priest was the protagonist or accomplice. This priest was responsible for the preaching of this block. He personally completed or witnessed the redemption rituals of this block. One believer bit off one of the priest's fingers, and another bit off one of the priest's ears. More than a dozen people surrounded him and pressed the priest to the ground. Everyone wanted to bite off a piece of the priest's flesh, and in fact they did so. The priest had one last long spike in his hand, but he did not use it to attack the believer who was lying on him and biting him. He shook his head. Even if his ear was bitten off by a believer, he would turn his head to look to the side. To the side was a high-level priest, the villain in his story, and it was the high-level priest who caused his family to be destroyed. The long spike in his hand flew towards the high-level priest. The high-level priest was also covered with believers and other priests. The long nails directly pierced the high-level priest's shoulders, making him unable to move. The high-level priest's neck was strangled by a woman. The woman exposed her chest. Half of her chest was cut off due to necrosis, but it did not affect her tightening the whip like crazy. This whip was originally a small toy used to satisfy the high-level priest's animal desires, but now it has become a tool for taking lives. Seeing that the high-level priest died before him, the low-level priest showed a satisfied smile on his face. Redemption, this is redemption, this is the real redemption. Only when the great hatred is avenged can people let go of hatred and gain redemption. There is no forgiveness in the world of hatred. Forgiveness only belongs to the dead. Only when the enemy dies tragically can he be forgiven for the past pain. The second effect of the Scorpio forbidden spell bone erosion revenge, blinded by hatred, the effect is very good. The priests and believers in the city fell into fratricide. The priests and believers are not a monolithic entity. The cruel ruling method of the Church of Pain has backfired on them at this moment. The more cruel they were at ordinary times, the more they wanted to skin each other alive under the stimulation of hatred. Rudolph's breathing became rapid. He felt hatred in Malvern City. It was not hatred from the Scorpio Star Force, but hatred from every soldier of the Constitutional Army and every priest. This hatred was his nourishment, which could make him a true 9th-level Scorpio wizard. Rudolph held the scepter and stepped into the blood-red beam of light. He walked in the blood mist, which flowed like water at Rudolph's feet. The first dead believer appeared in front of him. This believer died with his eyes open, staring at another corpse. When the scepter passed the corpse, the believer closed his eyes. Death took away hatred, and a red mist floated from the corpse, entered the scepter, and also entered Rudolph's body along the scepter. The feedback from hatred strengthened the Scorpio power in Rudolph's body. With the huge Scorpio 9-pointed star laid, the Constitutional Army and the painful church members in the city will release their hatred, which will condense in Rudolph's body and become a real bone-eroding hatred. As Rudolph moved forward, a trace of hatred gathered towards Rudolph. He was surrounded by red mist, like a demon. After Rudolph passed by, the dead put an end to hatred with death. The living people, after the red blood mist floated out of their bodies, relaxed and stopped being hysterical. A machine gunner was just firing angrily, and now he finally noticed the barrel that was on fire. He had to replace the barrel of the machine gun, and the hot barrel could no longer be used. While changing the barrel, the machine gunner saw the back of the consultant. The consultant walked freely on the street full of corpses with a scepter. Rudolph's momentum became stronger and stronger. It was no longer the kind of power that Cepheus collected all the constellations in the sky, but the power brought by the zodiac constellation, Scorpio. The red mist kept pouring into his body on the streets he walked through, making him full of strength. Behind him was a clear and bright place, without the red mist. In front of him was hatred, nourishing Rudolph's Scorpio star power. After Rudolph approached, those priests who had not yet died were more affected by hatred and killed each other more urgently. Before Rudolph arrived, the priests were tightly entangled and became dead bodies. Until Rudolph came to the vicinity of the temple and saw the 8th-level cardinal priest, Baz. The priests were affected by hatred and no longer had the strength to offer sacrifices. The sacrifice was interrupted halfway through. Rudolph did not take action. It was the 7th-level priests who interrupted the sacrifice. The 5 7th-level priests were supposed to be promoted to new cardinal priests in this sacrifice, but they began to besiege the central cardinal priest Baz. The superiors of the evil god cult have absolute authority over the inferiors, but at this moment, this authority is gone. 2 in 1. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 776. Is that an angel? On the airship, the soldiers saw the red blood mist on the ground gathering in a certain direction. In the center of the blood mist was a human figure, and the blood mist was like wings, pouring into that person's back. It's like the legendary angel with several wings spread out, except that his wings are ominous red. Although it seems to reveal extreme dangers, those dangers are aimed at the Church of Pain. For us, Mr. Consultant is an angel. Rudolph the Melting Pot, Rudolph the Butcher, Rudolph has many titles, and tonight someone actually called him an angel. From the outskirts of the city to the temple in the center of the city, no one fought back against the constitutional army in the sky. All priests, whether the most numerous priests of pain or priests of other evil cults, are seeking revenge against each other. They may only have a little disagreement on weekdays, but it doesn't matter. At this moment, even a little resentment will make them want to eat each other alive. They may have a deep grudge, but even better, they're literally eating each other alive. Even if the enemy has a complete bone, he can cause himself unbearable pain. Rudolph holds the scepter of amplification, and the power of the Scorpio star is amplified by the scepter, affecting the entire city. Whether it is the constitutional army in the sky and suburbs, or the priests in the city, they have all become slaves of hatred. These slaves of hatred all contributed their hatred star power to Rudolph. After absorbing all the city's hatred star power, Rudolph stood outside the temple. In the temple, a level 7 priest bit Cardinal Priest Baz's throat like a werewolf. Even the 6th level priests joined the battle group, and everyone struggled together. The pus pool in the temple was stirred by them, giving off a stench. Everyone seemed to be rolling in the mud. There was even a level 6 priest lying in the pus, completely burying his head in the pus, biting Baz's feet regardless of his mouth full of pus. He once longed for a chance to kiss Baz's feet like a slave, but now all those flatteries have turned into undesirable hatred. How much I wanted to kiss Baz's feet at that time, now I want to bite a piece of flesh on Baz's feet. Unfortunately, there wasn't much meat on the metatarsal bones, only a layer of skin. The level 6 priest spent a lot of effort and couldn't bite off much. The only one who is awake here is Baz, because Baz is painfully watched by the evil god. Baz was surprised to find that the level 7 pain priest who attacked him was as capable of resisting attacks as the level 8 cardinal priest. He chopped off the head of one of them and lost his body. The head could still bite his palm fiercely. Baz looked past the crazy priest and towards the wizard who appeared outside the temple. Furnace. The furnace took off his hood and was looking at himself with cold eyes. The leader of tonight's operation, the mastermind behind the heavy losses of the Church of Pain, the most active wizard on the Saragosi, the furnace, appeared outside the temple. Purgatory on Earth. The constitutional army was pouring out artillery fire to avenge the years of war. The believer takes revenge with death just to bite off a piece of the priest's flesh. The priest abandoned his faith and took revenge on the high-ranking priests who had demanded his obedience. This is exactly what Rudolf wanted. Rudolf stood there, watching a dozen priests tearing each other's flesh and blood in the pus. Pus splashed on the wound, and the wound festered at a speed visible to the naked eye. After more than 10 seconds, the white bones would be exposed from the wound. Cardinal Priest Baz stared at Rudolf and said something, but there was no sound. His throat was bitten and he couldn't make a sound. Rudolf didn't look at Baz at all, his eyes fell on the rotten flesh in the center of the Itcher pool. There was a 3-meter-high sarcoma behind Baz. It was the core of the temple, a piece of rotten flesh from the pain of the evil god. At this time, the rotten flesh began to squirm. Not long after, a mouth appeared on the carrion. The lips are peeled red flesh, and the teeth are like skulls. The furnace, this is the forbidden spell, this is the wizard's forbidden spell, you are getting promoted. The evil god is worthy of being an existence with pseudo-immortality, and he is very knowledgeable. He can see that Rudolf is completing the Scorpio forbidden curse ceremony. Rudolf raised his scepter and pointed it at the sarcoma. Come, pain, come. Rudolf's voice was firm. Through the omniscient scroll, he already knew what kind of power the evil god would have when he came. The true form of pain is far away in the southern continent, and what comes here is only a part of his divine power. In the city of Malvern, believers and priests are dying rapidly, and those who are still alive are caught in civil strife, unable to care about providing the evil god with the power of faith. Even if pain comes, the upper limit of divine power is not high. After several years of growth, Rudolf is now able to face evil gods and entities that he once dared not look at directly. With the blessing of divine power, sarcoma moves more and more freely. The horrifying and disgusting mouth on the sarcoma opened and closed. I didn't expect you to use this forbidden spell to get promoted. Hatred, this forbidden spell is not simple. I personally want to thank you, Rudolf said. Thank you for creating the soil of hatred and allowing me to gain valuable promotion opportunities through this overwhelming hatred. It is you who have filled the Garon region with hatred, and it is you who gave birth to me, the Scorpio wizard. Rudolf is not in a hurry, time is on his side. The more believers and priests die, the weaker the power of the temple becomes. In the pool of pus, a strange sound suddenly came out. The 7th and 6th level priests shrunk, not because their legs were weak, but because the pus suddenly became corrosive. The priests began to melt from their feet, spreading to their calves and knees. The pus pool gushed out a foul smell, and the pus began to boil, bubbling, purple, red and black, and churning. Only Baz, as a cardinal priest, was not affected by the pus corrosion. Baz, who was covered with sores, had wounds on his body that were even more hideous after being bitten by the priests. He slowly retreated backwards, retreating towards the tumor. The Temple of Pain sacrificed the 7th and 6th level priests, preparing to forcibly create a 9th level pope. Rudolf would not let the pain get its wish. The shadow of the Hercules appeared above Rudolf. In the myth, Hercules had bulging muscles all over his body and a resolute face. His strength increased again, and a golden breastplate appeared on his body, and golden flames were sprayed on the golden breastplate. The golden flame covered the whole body of the Hercules warrior immortal, and more than a dozen chains flew into the void. The majestic star power turned the Hercules warrior immortal into the Hercules immortal king. That's not all. After the Hercules immortal king appeared, other energies surged towards the Hercules immortal king. The battle in the whole city was coming to an end. The soldiers of the constitutional army, whose full potential was stimulated by hatred, had the last red mist coming out of their bodies. The believers who bit the priests in hatred had the last red mist coming out of their bodies. The priests who wanted to skin each other alive had the last red mist coming out of their bodies. Even the dead bodies, with their eyes open, had red mist coming out of their eyes. These red mists were all steaming blood mists, the embodiment of hatred. In the center of Malvern City, a vortex appeared at Rudolph's position. With the vortex as the center, the red mist began to surge towards the eye of the storm. The Hercules Immortal King was in the eye of the storm, and streams of red mist surged into the statue of the Hercules Immortal King. The Immortal King Hercules represents the peak of star power and the strongest posture of the constellations in the sky. At this moment, the Immortal King Hercules becomes stronger again. What provides energy for the Immortal King Hercules is hatred, the hatred of the whole city. Rudolph has also contained a lot of hate star power in his body along the way. His whole body is full of mist, and the blood mist representing hatred floats upward and also enters the phantom of the Immortal King Hercules. The color of the Immortal King Hercules' golden full body armor has changed. Instead of golden flames, the gaps in the armor spurt out red flames. The red flames transform the Immortal King Hercules, turning the armor of the Immortal King Hercules into red. The peephole of the helmet emits a hot and bright red light. More than 60,000 constitutional army and more than 80,000 priests and believers, whether dead or alive, are providing the power of hatred at this moment. The essence of strength is plunder, and Rudolph is plundering the hatred of the whole city. Some of these hatreds have accumulated since the war, some have accumulated since several years ago, and some have even accumulated since memory. All the pain and unwillingness have turned into hatred that is so thick that it cannot be dissolved or resolved. The Red Fairy King Hercules was filled with the majestic power of hatred. The power of hatred in the statue was squeezed, refined, and concentrated, becoming as solid as a solid entity. At this moment, the most critical change occurred above the starry sky. Scorpio has 14 bright stars, representing the 14 witch words of Scorpio, and also representing the 14 possible forbidden spells of Scorpio. Mercury is the first Scorpio wizard, and the Scorpio forbidden spell Forbidden Puppet has become a fixed forbidden spell for Scorpio Alpha star. And Rudolph is the second Scorpio wizard, and the Scorpio forbidden spell Bone-Eating Hatred has become a fixed forbidden spell for Scorpio Beta star. The majestic star power descended from the direction of Scorpio, and these star powers were filled with the power of hatred under the guidance of Scorpio Beta star. The star power of hatred descended from the sky and surged to the back of the Immortal King Hercules. The star power of hatred gathered from the whole city and surged to the back of the Immortal King Hercules. The star power of hatred rose from the surroundings of Rudolph below and surged to the back of the Immortal King Hercules. It was as if there were several more wings on the back of the Immortal King Hercules. The seraphic angel of vengeance. The hatred condensed into red feathers, and 6 wings appeared on both sides of the Immortal King Hercules, with red flames burning on the wings. The essence of the power of the Immortal King Hercules was sublimated and turned into the seraphic angel of vengeance. The deep red armor like blood was spewing hot red flames. The head still retained the appearance of the Immortal King Hercules' helmet, but the color changed from gold to red. The golden giant sword also turned into a red giant sword. With wings on his body and a giant sword in his hand, the seraphic angel of vengeance was extremely powerful. The 2 major effects of the Scorpio forbidden spell, bone erosion vengeance, are extreme potential and hatred blindness. Extreme potential is an amplification type forbidden spell effect, and hatred blindness is a chaos type amplification effect. With the amplification effect of extreme potential, the combat power of the Seraph Angel directly exceeds that of the ordinary level 9. This is the Seraph Angel that belongs to the level 9 Scorpio wizard Rudolph. It has both the star power of the constellations of the heavens that he has accommodated along the way, and the star power of the level 9 zodiac Scorpio. Rudolph opened his eyes, and his eyes were red. At this moment, the tumor also merged with Bez. The tumor floated into the air, and the surrounding area was vibrating with terrifying energy waves. The pus pool was blown, and circles of black and green ripples rippled outward. The tumor squirmed and stretched out a big hand. This arm was 5 meters thick, and the arm was densely packed. Looking closely, the arm was composed of normal people's arms. Each arm either had missing fingers or a completely broken palm, or had scars from self-mutilation. This was the hand of pain, made up of the arms of believers and priests. After the hand of pain appeared, it grasped Rudolf from a distance through the void. Rudolf suddenly felt his throat tighten, as if his throat was being strangled. Painful memories suddenly hit Rudolf. From the beginning of the journey, he was eager to contact the world of the apostles, and he was nervous about becoming a wizard apprentice. The dangers encountered when collecting relics, and the fear of being regarded as a mortal enemy by high-level apostles. The helplessness and struggles over the years. The most painful memory made Rudolf gasp. When he watched Claude being killed, Rudolf wanted to shoot himself. The revolver that had not been used for a long time appeared in Rudolf's hand. Rudolf had the urge to commit suicide. His childishness and stupidity killed Claude. If it was the previous Rudolf, he would definitely commit suicide in the hand of pain. However, the forbidden curse of hatred, the real power of the ninth-level apostle, made Rudolf fight back. Blinded by hatred, the chaotic effect of the bone-eating hatred made Rudolf have another idea in his mind. He wanted revenge, he wanted revenge, he wanted revenge for Claude. The angel of vengeance suddenly spread his 6 wings and shot out countless red feathers. The hand of pain suddenly paused, and the fingers that were clenched loosened. The feathers of blazing hatred flew over, causing ripples in the air. Each arm that made up the hand of pain seemed to have its own will, and they were no longer tightly together. One arm grabbed the other arm fiercely, trying to break it off. Hatred, hatred that could not be eliminated even by death. These arms recognized each other, they remembered the hatred when they were alive, and now they wrestled together regardless of anything. The hand of pain suddenly loosened, and all the arms inside were caught in a fight. The tumor that represents the evil god's pain, the rotten flesh inside is squeezing each other, and each piece of rotten flesh wants to crush the other rotten flesh. The big mouth of pain can't keep stable, and the skulls that serve as teeth are hitting left and right. Who do all believers and priests hate the most? In the last moment before death, they are all in pain and hate this evil god. The evil god in the southern continent is in pain, and suddenly finds that his power of faith has become chaotic. He quickly cuts off the connection with the Malvern City Temple and ends the advent of remote divine power. The furnace is exactly as he said. It was the expedition of the evil god cult that cultivated the Scorpio wizard furnace. Pain found that his ability was completely suppressed by the furnace. Hatred can create chaos. The belief system of the evil god cult collapsed in hatred, and his divine power could not suppress the chaos of countless powers of faith. Before the tumor collapsed, it let out a final hiss. Furnace. You have the potential to become an evil god? I like your forbidden spell very much. One day, you will be eroded by hatred, just like I was eroded by pain. Rudolf frowned. Is this a painful curse? But it doesn't matter. After the tumor collapsed, the seraph angel ended the battle. The seraph angel slowly descended and entered Rudolf's body. The huge star power of hatred transformed Rudolf, which improved the essence of Rudolf's life. He officially became a level 9 Scorpio wizard, and his scepter was also transformed into a bone-eroding scepter. From now on, he is the Zodiac Scorpio wizard Rudolf who controls hatred. 2 in 1. If it is one chapter in the future, I am too lazy to split it. 2 in 1 has 4,000 words. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 777. The evil god's painful voice echoed over the temple, becoming increasingly faint, and finally turned into a lingering whisper. This whisper lingered in Rudolf's ears, constantly telling the evil god's painful curse. Pain actually said that Rudolph had the potential to be an evil god, which was really reasonable. Staring into the abyss, sinking into the abyss, and becoming the abyss. Rudolph had been fighting against the evil god cult for a long time, and unknowingly, his level 9 forbidden spell turned out to be the most restraining chaos forbidden spell against the evil god cult. For the evil god cult, which has a very strict master-servant relationship, the chaos forbidden spell can directly attack the belief system. When the belief system collapses, the evil god's faith power will also fall into chaos. Apart from a few evil gods, the person who knows the evil god cult best must be Rudolph. It can be said that the evil god cult's northern expedition went from prosperity to decline, and the landmark events were the alchemical nuclear bomb and the fall of the temple. Both of these events were led by Rudolph, and the evil god cult must hate Rudolph to death. As for making Rudolph a person like the evil god, he was very opposed to it from the bottom of his heart. He could do it, but he didn't want to do it. Rudolph didn't want to control so many people, and he only used the wind phase forbidden technique to make the gentle wine waiter once. Rudolph was also a person with a certain degree of mental cleanliness. After seeing the evil god's methods, he was even more unwilling to imitate the evil god. Compared with controlling the enemy, Rudolph preferred to kill the enemy. The painful tumor collapsed, and the flowing pus turned into a pool of stagnant water, emitting a foul smell. Rudolph waved the bone-eroding scepter, and a magnificent flame suddenly burst out in front of him. When he was a level 8 wizard, Rudolph's sparks were blue and white. Now that he has become level 9, the sparks have turned pure blue, which is the highest form of the Lion King's sparks. The terrifying high temperature of up to 30,000 degrees Celsius rushed to the pus pool of the temple. The pus was instantly evaporated by the blue sparks, and the stench was rushed to the sky by the fierce air waves. Even though he couldn't smell anything under the high temperature, Rudolph felt a faint stench around him. The seraph angel spread his wings and swept away the vaporized pus. The seraph angel was not even used in this battle. The evil god of pain was too weak to fight. The seraph angel, which was hundreds of meters high, wielded a red giant sword and completely swept the rich buildings of the evil god around the temple into ruins, announcing the destruction of the temple in the city. The city center of Malvern was only a charred black, and the temple could no longer be seen. The scattered and stubbornly resisting priests of pain put down their weapons in despair. They looked at the disappeared temple and the red angels above the temple, and understood that the temple of pain was completely destroyed. The Lord of Redemption had clearly descended just now, but was defeated by that terrifying wizard. The Lord of Redemption failed to bring salvation to the city, and the Lord of Redemption gave up all the priests of pain in the city. Who on earth can defeat the Lord of God? Is that wizard as powerful as the Night King? Isn't it true that only Emperor Megwen can defeat the Lord God in the northern continent? The priests couldn't figure it out, and they didn't have the chance to figure it out. When the constitutional army saw the evil god retreat, their morale was even higher, and they attacked the remaining priest teams fiercely. The painful believers seemed to be missing a piece in their hearts. They only knew that there had been a drastic change in the temple, and the wizard's starlight creation replaced the temple. The believers who survived no longer stared at the priests, no longer retaliated against the priests, and no longer waited for the priests' orders, but turned to look at the constitutional army. The familiar military emblem on the airship made these believers confused. These were the constitutional army that once protected them. Just wait, as long as the constitutional army solves the priests, the constitutional army will not give up on them, and they can still live as before. Many believers looked at their hands and feet, and they didn't know how many jobs they could do after being disabled. If the alchemist's factory employs disabled people, they can deduct taxes. In the worst case, they can go to cities with fewer disabled people and use this preferential policy to find a way to survive. If you attack the priests, they will all be blasphemers and will never have the chance to become believers. Even if they are caught by the evil god cult again, they will only be sacrifices. On the ruins of the temple, the flames dissipated, and the scattered apostle power recondensed, and one level 8 relic and 6 level 7 relics appeared on the ground. The evil god was in pain and finally failed to infuse Baz into a level 9 pope, which made Rudolph a little regretful. It was really stingy. He was reluctant to give Rudolph a level 9 relic. Rudolph kept these relics well, and it would be good to give them to others in the future. After waiting for a long time, the relics could not light up the star map like before, and Rudolph felt a little lost. He was used to the link of the relics entering the star map, but now it was different. The star map disappeared and turned into the Omniscience Scroll. The Omniscience Scroll no longer needs the relics to provide energy for operation. Rudolph's level 9 star power is the power of the Omniscience Scroll. With the rumbling sound of artillery as the background, Rudolph began to take inventory of his promotion. This is a physical job. With the help of the Scroll of Omniscience, Rudolph has gained too many special abilities, and it will take some time to count them all. Happy troubles. In terms of fire-related forbidden spells, not only did the Lion King Starfire change from blue-white to pure blue, but the Sagittarius Finger Fire and Aries Pupil Fire also turned blue. The Scroll of Omniscience shows that the forbidden spell Lion King Starfire was created by the first 9th level Zodiac Lion Wizard. The Lion Wizard was originally a friend of Ptolemy, and had helped Emperor Megwin defeat the evil god cult together. Later, he broke up with Ptolemy and was killed by Ptolemy, and his forbidden spell was also taken away by the Pillar of Creation. The Archer Wizard who created the forbidden spell of Archer Finger Fire was the apprentice of the Lion Wizard, and later died in the battle to challenge Ptolemy. This master and apprentice pair was really pitiful. They were the first to discover that Ptolemy had ill intentions and wanted to steal the fruits of the Holy War, and finally died tragically at Ptolemy's hands. The Holy War to expel the evil god required the most powerful attack power, so the forbidden spells of this master and apprentice were manifested as strong combat power. The forbidden spell of Aries Pupil Fire was the forbidden spell created by Ptolemy. Rudolph was a little sad to learn the origin of the forbidden spell of Aries Pupil Fire. In the era when 10 evil gods ruled the continent, there was an evil god who was specifically responsible for the management of faith, named Sacrifice. The evil god Sacrifice created a complete set of sacrificial rituals for the evil god cult, and he also managed all the faiths on behalf of the evil god cult, which was equivalent to the general manager of the evil god cult. In the temple of the gods at that time, the statues of the evil gods of killing and sacrifice were always located in the center, and the other evil gods were arranged on both sides in turn. When Ptolemy was promoted to the 9th level wizard, he created the Aries Pupil Fire in order to fight against the most critical evil god Sacrifice in the evil god cult. The biggest role of the Aries Pupil Fire is to manipulate the soul, or prevent the soul from being manipulated, so as to prevent the soul of oneself and others from being affected by the evil god. This forbidden technique does not have much positive combat power, but it is crucial to defeating the evil god cult at that time. The evil god Sacrifice, the strongest evil god killing, and the evil god stealing all died in the last battle. The precious 9th level forbidden spell Aries Pupil Fire has no positive combat power. At that time, Ptolemy could only hide behind the Night Emperor. This is one of the reasons why Ptolemy finally chose the power of war. It is different after obtaining the power of war. Ptolemy's strength suddenly increased to the first on the continent. The sacred exorcism battle more than 2,000 years ago must have been thrilling. It was a life and death battle between the top romantic figures at that time. The forbidden spells and rules that appeared at that time have affected the present. Among the wind-related forbidden spells, Libra's forbidden spell, the Salt Covenant that will never be abandoned, can sign an unbreakable contract with the 9th level apostles. This forbidden spell requires a long preparation time, and it cannot be completed unless it is slowly signed with the neutral 9th level apostles, or directly deceived. Gemini's forbidden spell, the Seed of Split Personality, after a period of influence, can plant a second personality in the consciousness of others. Aquarius's forbidden spell, the gentle wine waiter, can directly control the 8th level apostles. The gentle wine waiter has extremely strong destructive power. House and Stein jointly developed the alchemical nuclear bomb, and House became a 9th level alchemist. In addition to Prime Minister House, if Rudolf is willing, he can use this forbidden spell to control the Elba Alchemy Council. According to the Omniscient Scroll, about 600 years ago, several amazing wind wizards appeared. They took a different approach. If they couldn't beat Ptolemy, they would use mental forbidden spells to secretly fight Ptolemy. They had a very good relationship with the Pillar of Creation and almost tricked it, but unfortunately they failed and only left a few forbidden spells, which became one of Rudolph's collections. The Voice of the Wind is an organization created by those wind wizards. From the best helper and most loyal subordinate of the Pillar of Creation to the enemy who almost destroyed the Pillar of Creation, the Voice of the Wind once showed a brilliant light. The earth-based forbidden spells have also been strengthened. The Taurus forbidden spell, Pulverized World, is an offensive forbidden spell that instantly shatters the enemy's defense. The Virgo forbidden spell, Absolute Holiness, is a defensive forbidden spell. Any attack will automatically avoid Rudolf, leaving him spotless. The combination of these two forbidden spells can make Rudolf both offensive and defensive. As for the Capricorn forbidden spell, Parasitic Substitution, this forbidden spell gives Rudolf an extra trump card. If he is really targeted by Ptolemy, if he is really desperate, he can completely rely on this forbidden spell to change his body and start a new life. Changing a body means saying goodbye to the past life. This replacement is not the metamorphosis of the insect nest priest, but the complete replacement of the soul, which cannot be tracked or distinguished by any means. Just like Rudolph's second time traveling, he can quickly become a level 9 wizard with another identity. In the long history, many powerful level 9 wizards have emerged. The promotion ceremony of each wizard is to develop a certain witch language into a forbidden spell. The omniscient authority is an authority that becomes more powerful as time goes by. It brings Rudolf all the forbidden spells that have ever existed in the world, making Rudolf the strongest wizard. When using these level 9 forbidden spells, it should be noted that the star power of Scorpio Beta cannot be used. Rudolf has combined the star power of hatred with Scorpio Beta, and can only use the level 9 star power of the other 13 bright stars in Scorpio to drive other forbidden spells. The effect of this simulated forbidden spell is not as good as the forbidden spell used by the wizard who created the forbidden spell, but it is also at the level of level 9, which is enough to help Rudolf gain the upper hand in the battle. As for the forbidden water spells, Rudolf was a little surprised that there were no zodiac wizards in Cancer and Pisces. It seems that the strength or luck of water wizards is not the best among wizards. The only water wizard who became a zodiac wizard was the previous Scorpio wizard Mercury. Mercury was too strong, and the forbidden spell he created, Scorpio Puppet, was ridiculously strong. After knowing the true ability of Scorpio Puppet, Rudolf finally understood why Mercury could deal with Ptolemy for so long. Even if they broke up in the end, it took Ptolemy 12 years to kill Mercury. The most powerful thing about Scorpio Puppet is that it simulates level 9 uniqueness. Level 9 apostles all have some uniqueness. For example, there is only one level 9 werewolf Corvinus, one level 9 vampire Dracula, and one level 9 druid Neoph in the world. There are multiple level 9 apostle paths because those level 9 apostles can bring new uniqueness. For example, there can be many level 9 alchemists, but the level 9 abilities of 2 alchemists are very different. Each new level 9 alchemist represents that they have completed a brand new level 9 alchemical experiment. House and Stein, one studies uranium-235 and the other studies plutonium-239. In the end, they jointly created an alchemical nuclear bomb in mutual discussion. Their level 9 alchemical experiments are very different. In addition to House and Stein, the last level 9 alchemist was Robert, the great alchemist who created the steam engine. The emergence of the steam engine completely changed the production model of the alchemists, which greatly improved the productivity of the alchemists. This is the fundamental reason why the alchemists defeated the knights in the Constitutional War. Rudolph is the unique zodiac Scorpio wizard. This position is occupied by Rudolph. If he doesn't let it go, no one can become a zodiac Scorpio wizard. The 9th level star power of Scorpio is only enough for Rudolph to use. Even if others want to call on the 9th level Scorpio star power, Scorpio does not have that much. The star power of the constellation is not endless, but has an upper limit. If you want to become stronger, you must obtain a more powerful apostle power. The Lord of Mars is not only a title, but also means that Ptolemy can use the apostle power of Mars. The planet is closer to here, and the energy transmitted is also greater. When Mercury was young, he got the forbidden spell of Aquarius Gentle Wine Servant. His 9th level Scorpio ritual is actually a strengthening of the forbidden spell of Gentle Wine Servant. The result of the strengthening is that Mercury's puppet can simulate the 9th level uniqueness of the puppet apostle path. The three of them, Larry the Word Spirit, Vanya the Blood Clan, and Abigail the Silver Snake, are normally 8th level apostles, but when Rudolph needs it, he can choose one of them and use the 9th level Scorpio star power to infuse the puppets with a short period of time to simulate the abilities of their respective 9th level apostles. The 9th level Word Spirit is called the Miracle Word Spirit, and the forbidden spell of the Miracle Word Spirit is God said, "Let there be light." Within 3 seconds, everything around the 9th level Miracle Word Spirit will develop as he said. In these 3 seconds, the Miracle Word Spirit is the master of everything nearby. The spirit of the Word Spirit is an ancient mythological term, the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God moves on the water, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. For many men, 3 seconds is very long and can do a lot of things. This forbidden spell is very terrifying and can become Rudolph's trump card. The 9th level Silver Snake is called the Illusion Silver Snake. The Illusion Silver Snake can create an illusion that will trap the enemy forever, and they will not even know if they are starving to death. The Omniscience Scroll says that there are no level 9 miracle words and level 9 illusion silver snakes in the world now, and Rudolph can use these two level 9 uniqueness at will. Unfortunately, these two uniquenesses cannot form a combination, and only one can be used at the same time. The level 9 Blood Clan is the ancient Dracula of the Blood Clan. Dracula holds the uniqueness of the Blood Clan. When Rudolph borrows the uniqueness of the Blood Clan, he will be disturbed by Dracula. It would be great if Dracula could be killed, so that the uniqueness of the Blood Clan would belong directly to Rudolph. With many forbidden spells and 3 puppets, it is not too much to say that Rudolph thinks he is the second person in the northern continent. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 778. Rudolph looked up in the direction of Scorpio. Beta Scorpio radiates an ominous red light, while Alpha Scorpio radiates a yellow light. These two stars are now the most special bright stars in Scorpio. Rudolph's level 9 forbidden spell ritual engraved his unique mark on Beta Scorpio. The level 9 Scorpio star power contains the characteristics of the forbidden spell Bone Erosion Revenge. Bone Erosion Revenge has 2 effects. The first amplification effect, extreme potential. Hatred can inspire people's fighting spirit, stimulate people's potential, and continuously provide adrenaline to the Avenger. In the painful fight with the evil god just now, the hatred star power was not inferior to the evil god's painful divine power. This amplification effect can not only be used for oneself, but also for others. The feedback from the Constitution Army just now proved that if he was in an army with a huge hatred like the Constitution Army, the amplification effect would be even similar to the Knight's Cross level battle. The second confusion effect, hatred blinded. Hatred can make people lose themselves and their judgment. Enemies will have a huge hatred in their hearts, which will make them fall into chaos. If there are more than 2 enemies, the effect will be better, and the enemies will even fall into civil strife. The painful tumor is composed of body tissues cut off by believers and priests, and there are many people's wills in those body tissues. Rudolph's bone-eroding hatred is very restrained against pain, which is why pain has to retreat. He can hold his own in front of the evil god. He has already touched the energy limit of this world, and his strength is close to the upper limit of the rules. In order to make the power go further, different apostles are making different attempts. The first is to develop and refine like an alchemist to create supernatural weapons. For example, the 9th level alchemical nuclear bomb is terrifyingly powerful and much higher than the ordinary 9th level attack power. This is also where the alchemist far exceeds other apostles. Rudolph knows that there were several weapons that surpassed atomic bombs in his previous life, such as hydrogen bombs, neutron bombs, and so on. Perhaps in the near future, alchemists will really be able to master these terrible weapons. The second is to find a way to accommodate the power of others, like a knight or an evil god. The knight's method seems mild, but excessive extraction will also cause the death of a large number of knights. The evil god's method is much more violent, and he sacrifices tens of thousands of people at any time. In the doctrine of the evil god cult, there are many provisions that encourage childbirth and even promiscuity. The church needs population, and population is the foundation of the evil god's strength. In the doctrine formulated by the evil god's sacrifice, when the population is too small, the evil god will really become a god and start to save believers. Perhaps in a dozen years, in the propaganda of the southern continent, the furnace will become a complete demon. Waves of expeditionary southern continent people died in the hands of the wizard furnace, and the gods showed miracles one by one, bringing food and clothes to believers. The third, and most essential method, is to seek immortality. Let oneself merge with a certain immortal authority, so that one can occupy a certain rule and use the power of the rule. Rudolph called up the immortal scroll in his mind. How many immortals are there in this world? There is only one omniscient and complete immortal, the master of the power of war, Ptolemy, the lord of Mars. The power of war has the characteristic of being invincible. He will win any battle he participates in. Since the power of war has the characteristic of being invincible, why fight? Just run away when you meet. The strategy of the Wind Wizard organization of Wind language is also forced. They cannot confront Ptolemy head-on, because Ptolemy is undefeated if he holds the power of war. Rudolph fell into deep thought and had to use tricks to defeat Ptolemy. It's a pity that the omniscient power cannot predict the future and cannot give him an answer. If there really is the power of destiny, Rudolph can also find the only way to deal with Ptolemy among the 14 million endings. After a while, Rudolph asked again, what about the incomplete authority of immortality? For example, what is the broken authority of immortality like the scroll of omniscience? The omniscience of all knowledge, the incomplete immortality has two parts. The first part is the partial parasitic authority held by the evil god. The parasitic authority, the Lord of Hami, the essence of the power of faith is to parasitize one's own power in the body of believers or priests, and use the vitality of believers and priests to nourish the power of faith. The second part is the partial omniscience authority held by you and fraud. Ptolemy, the Lord of Mars, fought for every immortal authority in the long history. He is invincible, so the ending of each immortal authority is not very good. Hami, one of the dwarf planets in the solar system. Ceres, Eris, Hami, Charon, Pluto, these are the larger dwarf planets in the solar system. Pluto also served as the 9th planet in the solar system, and was later classified as a dwarf planet due to orbital problems. The reason why evil gods are stronger than ordinary level 9 apostles is that they also have some eternal power. Hearing this news, Rudolph felt that Ptolemy was the biggest troublemaker in the northern continent. He was everywhere. After finishing the promotion, Rudolph looked back and saw that the battle in the city was nearing its end. The Constitutional Army drove the last priests to the suburbs and then fired a level 8 giant air blast bomb. The iconic air blast bomb exploded among the priests. The shockwave even spread to the city, and large pieces of glass were shattered. After seeing the power of level 9 alchemical nuclear bombs, Rudolf felt that level 8 giant air burst bombs were a bit lackluster. At that time, she was called Air Explosion Bomb Xiao Tian, but now she is just MRS Niu. Rudolf slowly walked towards the outside of Malvern City. Hader was cleaning the battlefield near the city center. He saw the furnace consultant and followed Rudolf. His eyes were red, and his face showed relief after exhaustion. Major General Hit, don't the Blood Vengeance Army need your command? No need, the high-level priests are all dead. Next is free attack time, and the soldiers will search for the low-level priests themselves. Hit felt sore but happy. The level 9 alchemy nuclear bomb wiped out the top leaders of the evil god cult, and the result was exciting. However, Het and the others did not participate in that battle, so there was not much sense of accomplishment. This time was different. This time they personally participated in the battle to retake Malvern City, and it was a great victory. Het himself took action and killed several level 6 priests. The taste of revenge was very wonderful. Every soldier of the Constitutional Army played a role, and all the evil priests in the city were killed by the guns of the Constitutional Army. It's so happy, Mr. Consultant, it's so happy, wow. Without saying a few words, Het burst into tears. What happened in his hometown of Yingzhou Peninsula made Het and others filled with humiliation. How could they not be happy now that they had captured a city with a temple? The airship patrolled the sky, and the sound of guns and gunfire was heard. The airship safely dropped the Constitutional Army soldiers on the ground, and let the soldiers search every house. Rudolf looked at Het's appearance and comforted him, "You have done well. You have taken a big step forward on the road of revenge. Just like this, you are slowly improving your strength. One day, you will defeat the evil god called head-on of." Wiping away tears, Hader said, "Mr. Consultant, thank you. Without you, we would not be able to exert the full power of the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb. Without you, we would not be able to destroy the city's temples." Rudolf said, "It's me who should thank you. Without you, I wouldn't be able to complete the promotion ceremony. The flame of hatred has always been burning in your hearts. This is the key to my promotion. While helping you, I am also improving myself rapidly. Help each other, no thanks needed." The two of them were walking on the streets of Malvern City, where the corpses of priests were lying on the ground. This kind of war mixed with faith is very cruel. The priests of the evil god religion believe that those who have no faith are heretics and will be executed according to the doctrine. The northern continent's revenge was equally cruel. In the view of the Constitutional Army, as long as they were evil priests, they should die, and they would not judge the good and evil of the priests at all. The beautiful priestess will not get much preferential treatment at this time, and even more grenades will appear at her feet because she attracts more attention. Old priests will not be respected. They will only die from bullets faster because of their poor legs and feet. Each time the evil god sacrifices thousands of ordinary people, it has brought so much suffering to 11 Elba that now the Constitutional Army has no psychological burden in retaliating. Some reckless Constitutional Army soldiers would encounter the priests' dying counterattack, and Rudolf would help them to save their lives. I also met many believers along the way. Unlike the priests who were bound to be executed, the changes in the believers surprised Rudolf. The believers are at the bottom of the evil religion. Even if they are forced to believe in the evil religion by the priests, they are still oppressed on weekdays. With the suppression of their faith, they were unable to resist the priests on a large scale. After praying with the priests again and again, these believers were given psychological hints, and they were unable to resist the priests within the scope of the temple's faith radiation. After the bone-eroding poison affected the entire city, the believers acted rebelliously against the priests and killed many low-level priests. This is a serious act of blasphemy for the evil religion, and it is a complete blasphemy. Once the idea of resisting the oppression of the priests arises, it can no longer be suppressed. Those believers with the priest's blood on their hands can no longer continue their faith. The believers knelt in front of the constitutional army soldiers and kept telling them that they had sobered up and had given up their faith, hoping that the constitutional army could help them start their lives again. In order to fight against the knights, the alchemists publicized that they would not enjoy the kneeling of serfs like noble lords. The same was true for the soldiers of the constitutional army at this time. They were very uncomfortable with the kneeling of believers. The soldiers tried to help the believers up, but it would take some time to change their behavior. This matter cannot be solved by ordinary soldiers. The sobriety of the believers was reported step by step. After evaluation by the General Staff of the Constitutional Army, it was believed that these believers had the possibility to completely get rid of the influence of the evil cult. In the words of the General Staff Officer, the level 9 forbidden spell of the furnace consultant is enough to make believers hate the evil god. This kind of hatred even the apostles cannot resist, let alone these civilians who do not have the power of the apostles. After testing by the Druid, it was determined that there was indeed no influence of the apostles' power in the believers' bodies. An airship delivered documents from the General Staff, hoping that the furnace consultants would sign the document proving that hatred outweighed faith. After Rudolf took the document, he signed his name confidently. During the forbidden curse ceremony just now, Rudolf was very sure that blood mist was also produced on ordinary believers, which was a concrete manifestation of hatred. He couldn't help but say, "This is a really good result. If ordinary believers can get rid of the influence of the evil god, then the city will not be completely destroyed. There is hope for people." Just when Malvern was in a mess, Rudolf suddenly raised his eyebrows and felt the call of the star condensation dragon scale. He said to Hater, "I'll go to Luberon City." Hate watched the figure of the furnace consultant flash by, and then he went to deal with the battle in the suburbs. When Rudolf arrived in Luberon City, he found that he appeared in the Constitution Army funeral home in Luberon City. Blanca held the star condensation dragon scale and attended the memorial service here. The funeral home was full of officers and soldiers wearing white flowers, and Rudolf saw the portrait at the top. Commander-in-Chief Stein. The last time he saw Commander-in-Chief Stein, Rudolf found that his physical condition was very poor. Unexpectedly, Commander-in-Chief Stein died of a serious illness in just half a month. The experiment of alchemical nuclear bombs is very dangerous. During the exploration experiment, Stein was severely irradiated and had already suffered from a terminal illness. Next to the body of Commander-in-Chief Stein, Rudolf saw Prime Minister House and many senators. Unexpectedly, even Prime Minister House came here from Leger City to attend the memorial service for Commander-in-Chief Stein. Rudolf and Blanca laid flowers for the body of Commander-in-Chief Stein. Standing behind Prime Minister House, the two watched everyone come forward one by one to express their condolences to Commander-in-Chief Stein. Prime Minister House glanced at Furnace. As a level 9 apostle, he found that Furnace had changed. "Mr. Advisor, have you been promoted to level 9 wizard?" "Yes, I became a Zodiac Scorpio wizard." Prime Minister House nodded. "It should be so. Furnace's promotion has always been very fast. Furnace is only 25 years old now, and he completed the level 9 alchemy experiment at the age of 62 this year." He whispered. "Joel will be promoted to the Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army of Sealba. He will leave the Garan region in the south and come to the Luberon region to fight against the werewolves." Rudolf did not say anything. He should not interrupt the personnel transfer of the Constitutional Army. Prime Minister House continued. "Mr. Advisor, after the memorial service, I will let Minister Duan hand over Stein's level 9 relics to you. I hope you can make a level 9 magic weapon for Sealba. This is Stein's last wish." He hopes to continue to protect Silba after his death. House handed Rudolf a letter. Rudolf opened it and saw that it was Stein's will. In this will, he first explained his satisfaction after knowing the power of the little boy, and then said that he finally made a level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb with his own hands, and hoped that Mr. Furness would name the third alchemical nuclear bomb. Stein hoped to make his relics into magic weapons, let the magic weapons replace himself, guard Silba, and change Silba's tragic fate. If there is a level 9 alchemical magic weapon, the nuclear bomb factory in Luberon can continuously produce alchemical nuclear bombs. Stein finally thanked Rudolf for being able to use the relics to make magic weapons to continue to protect Silba. This is the greatest romance in the face of death. After being relieved, Rudolf sighed. Tonight, I will make magic weapons for you, Rudolf said. The third nuclear bomb, let's call it Mistchu. 2 in 1. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 779. During Stein's funeral, I regret that I cannot hold a celebration banquet for you. Congratulations, Mr. Rudolph, congratulations on becoming the Wizard of the Zodiac. As it should be, Commander-in-Chief Stein is a respectable general. He dedicated everything to the Constitutional Army and the people of West Elba. At this moment, my promotion is nothing. Prime Minister House glanced at Rudolph and wanted to say that Rudolph was also a respectable wizard. But he didn't say it. As the war progresses, Prime Minister House only trusts Rudolph. Rudolph stood firmly on the side of West Elba and fought against the evil cult again and again. His actions gained the trust of Prime Minister House and all the senators. In fact, if they did not trust the Forge advisors, the Garon region would have been lost long ago, and even in the Vulture Mountains, they would have lost to the Knights of East Elba. West Elba has been preparing for the defense of the capital, but the strength of the furnace has made the defense of the capital useless. After leaving the funeral home, House and Rudolph walked together to the train station. House said, "I really envy you. You have that kind of witchcraft that can travel freely. Unlike me, I have to take the train back to Legura. I also have regrets in this matter. The pillars of creation put too much pressure on me. There is naked hatred only among peers. I dare not go to the Arctic glaciers, so I cannot accommodate the characteristics of Draconis. Otherwise, I can be more flexible now." Rudolph thought for a while and said, "I hope the pillars of creation can cultivate more heavenly dragon wizards. If I can get a dozen level 8 white dragon scales, the convenience will be barely acceptable." House smiled. He felt that the furnace was too optimistic and even wanted to collect the relics of more than a dozen Gongji Tianlong wizards. He just didn't know if the pillars of creation could be so productive. "Mr. Consultant, please worry about the Garon region." Rudolph nodded and said, "It's hard to say whether the Eagle's Beak Peninsula can be recovered, but the cities north of the Iron Wall will return to West Elba." "Okay, Mr. Consultant, your words are enough," House asked. "Stein is gone. What do you think of this in the Luberon region?" "I'm just trying to communicate with the Constitutional Army. It's time for the wolf tide to end. I hope to organize a counterattack to completely end the wolf tide and completely destroy the werewolves." When Prime Minister House heard this, his breathing paused for a moment. Okay. Please discuss all matters with Commander-in-Chief Joel. You and Joel fought all the way from the Condor Mountains to the Garon region. He will cooperate with you and fully cooperate with you to completely end the wolf tide." After thinking for a while, Prime Minister House asked a question that he was very concerned about. "Mr. Advisor, do you really have omniscient authority?" Rudolph looked at the tired House, without any intention of lying to him. "Yes, I hold part of the omniscient authority, and the other part of the omniscient authority is in the deceitful hands of the evil god." House's eyes appeared dazed, and after compiling his emotions, he said, "I am approaching retirement age and am no longer interested in authority. Nor will I ask you to hand over your omniscient authority to the alchemist, even if the omniscient authority is the authority that belongs to the alchemist. Mr. Advisor, I hope you will use your omniscient authority to help a group of West Elba's alchemists for the sake of your feelings of fighting side by side with West Elba for several years. If possible, I hope that more alchemists will complete promotion experiments with the help of omniscient authority and give birth to more high-level alchemists. Please, Mr. Advisor. Facing Prime Minister House's burning eyes, Rudolph nodded and agreed to this request. Prime Minister House, I will discuss this matter with Commander-in-Chief Joel and help the level 7 and level 8 alchemists in West Elba to be promoted. Very good, Joel is a level 8 alchemist. If he can be promoted, then I can safely hand 11 Elba into his hands. It turns out that Joel played such an important role in the change of power in West Elba. Now he is the Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army, and next he will be the Speaker of the House of Lords. Prime Minister House got on the train, and Rudolph also followed Dwayne, the Minister of Justice, to the secret nuclear bomb factory. Outside the secret factory, the Constitutional Army built a high platform to welcome their level 9 witchcraft. Rudolph stood on the high platform, and Dwayne asked 4 of his men to carry a box to Rudolph. After Dwayne placed the box on the long table, he said, "Mr. Advisor, this is Commander-in-Chief Stein's relic. Before his death, the Commander-in-Chief was designing the next generation of centrifuges. Severe radiation caused him to suffer from multiple cancers. Coupled with his older age, the best vectors failed to save the Commander-in-Chief's life. Several staff members were holding protective suits. Mr. Advisor, the Commander-in-Chief's relics contain radiation. Please wear protective clothing." Rudolph shook his head. "You can wear it, I don't need it." Dwayne didn't know what the furnace consultant had to do, so he nodded quickly, motioned for several of his subordinates to put on protective clothing and step aside. Rudolph opened the box and saw a uranium ring. This is a ring made of enriched uranium and is the core component of the alchemical nuclear bomb. Level 9 relic, a very precious level 9 relic. Rudolph has the shielding witchcraft provided by the omniscient scroll and is not afraid of the radiation from the uranium ring. After drawing the astrological triangle on the ground, Rudolph placed the uranium ring in the center of the triangle. The alchemical power emanating from the uranium ring is surprisingly rich. It is indeed a level 9 relic of Commander-in-Chief Stein, with more powerful apostolic power than those in the papal scepter. In his mind, Rudolph asked the Scroll of Omniscience, how to make a level 9 uranium ring magical instrument. The Scroll of Omniscience opened, and a line of words appeared on it. "Omniscience, I'm very sorry, I only know what happened before, and I don't know what has never appeared. This omniscience is not good either, but think about it, the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb is the first time it has appeared, no wizard has made a similar magic instrument, and the Scroll of Omniscience does not record it, so we don't know how to make a new magic instrument. The authority of omniscience is most useful to alchemists and more suitable for alchemists. Alchemists focus on logical reasoning. If they are given a lot of known conditions, they can constantly deduce unknown knowledge." Without the help of the plug-in, Rudolph had to arrange the magic language himself to see which magic language is more suitable. Rudolph now knows all the magic languages in the world, and he has a huge library of magic languages for him to choose from. Fortunately, he had heard about the principles of nuclear bombs in his previous life, and he quickly selected the core magic language of this magic instrument. The first witch language, and also the most core witch language, is the Gemini witch language, fission. Gemini is two brothers with completely opposite destinies. Both sides have the same starting line, but in the end they have very different destinies. The witch language of fission can quickly fission the attacks launched by the wizard into several, 2, 4, 8, and so on. The principle of the alchemical nuclear bomb is similar to that of the nuclear bomb that Rudolph had heard of in his previous life. Both achieve nuclear reactions through fission. The alchemical nuclear bomb adds alchemical power on the basis of natural nuclear fission, which makes the nuclear fission more violent. Since it is nuclear fission, the Gemini witch language, fission is very suitable. In the direction of Gemini, the majestic star power descends. After being promoted to the 9th level zodiac wizard, the star power of the zodiac constellation that Rudolph can draw is much stronger. Under the effect of the Gemini witch language, fission, the uranium ring will create more violent fission. The second witch language is the Leo witch language, deflagration. The addition of this witch word can increase the speed of nuclear fission and make it faster. The third witch word, Aquarius witch word burst. The power accumulated in the uranium ring will burst out in a shorter time, making the nuclear fission more violent. The faster the alchemical nuclear bomb explodes, the shorter the reaction time for the enemy. With the blessing of these three witch words, the power of this witch weapon will be even stronger. The power is close to the limit, and Rudolph thoughtfully added another witch word. The fourth witch word, Virgo witch word constraint. With this witch word, the usual level 9 witch weapon will not leak much radiation, making the witch weapon have fewer side effects when it is kept, hoping to avoid Stein's tragedy from happening again. When all the star power entered the relic, the star stone powder on the ground began to wriggle and merged into the uranium ring, and this level 9 witch weapon was completed. Duin rushed over at the first time, and he saw the furnace erecting the uranium ring on the ground. This one-person high witch weapon is not suitable as a witch weapon, but suitable for being placed in a secret factory. Take off your protective clothing. This magic weapon no longer has radiation in normal times, so you can use it with confidence. Rudolph put the level 9 uranium ring into the box and said, "The level 9 uranium ring can replace Commander-in-Chief Stein to complete the last step of the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb and inject the level 9 alchemical power into the nuclear bomb. 2 level 8 alchemists, or 4 level 7 alchemists, or 8 level 6 alchemists, or 16 level 5 alchemists can operate the level 9 uranium ring." After being strengthened by the witch language, the power of the alchemical nuclear bomb is not inferior to the alchemical nuclear bomb made by Commander-in-Chief Stein himself. If a level 9 alchemist completes the last step personally, the power of the alchemical nuclear bomb produced will be greatly enhanced. Duin asked his men to take out a large safe. This safe has an alchemical protection array designed by Prime Minister House himself. Unless Prime Minister House has the alchemical key, it cannot be opened. Rudolph curiously watched the alchemist seal the magic weapon. The alchemist's methods were varied and very interesting. After putting away the magic weapon, Duin asked cautiously, "Mr. Consultant, do you have any requests?" "What requests?" "For example, how much time do you want to borrow each year, and the Senate will agree to your conditions?" "No, you can use it with confidence," Rudolph said with a smile. "I am now a level 9 Scorpio wizard. Unless I fight against a large number of troops, I don't need alchemical nuclear bombs or this level 9 magic weapon." Are you still worried if I don't make some requests?" "Yes, I am a little worried. Whether it is Prime Minister House, Duin, or those senators, they all understand that asking a level 9 wizard to take action is expensive. How about this, from now on, I will always have a level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb ready for me. I am very satisfied with the killing range of the alchemical nuclear bomb. If someone gangs up on me, I will use the alchemical nuclear bomb to deal with them." Duin heard this request and nodded quickly. "How about you take the fat man away? It's the second alchemical nuclear bomb you named." "Okay, I will take the fat man away." Rudolph thought for a while and said, "I guess I will use the fat man soon." "Use it soon? Where are you going to use it?" "I'm going to use it on the werewolf," Rudolph said. "Since I have been promoted to a level 9 wizard, I should also go to the level 9 werewolf Corvinus to settle accounts. If the evil god hadn't put too much pressure on me, I would have gone to him long ago." Duin was extremely excited when he heard the news. Is the wave war that has lasted for several years finally coming to an end? Mr. Consultant, may I ask Miss Yvonne? Duan immediately thought of a possibility. There was a level 8 mutated white wolf next to the furnace. If the forge has to deal with Corvinus, the distant ancestor of the level 9 werewolf, wouldn't it be possible for Miss Yvonne to be promoted to a level 9 werewolf? Yes, I will work with Yvonne to deal with Corvinus. If Yvonne becomes the wolf king of all werewolves, I think there will be fundamental changes in the wilderness, and the situation in Luberon will also be affected by this. Get better. Seeing Duane's excitement, Rudolph couldn't help but said, Minister Duane, you should keep this witchcraft weapon carefully. I'm afraid that someone will come to snatch the witchcraft weapon. If this witchcraft weapon is lost, you will also face the terrifying level 9 alchemy nuclear bomb. Duan nodded and said, the uranium mine is in the Luberon region, so the nuclear bomb factory can only be in the Luberon region. We will design the most stringent protection for this witchcraft, and Prime Minister House will personally complete the protective circle. Prime Minister House will issue a statement that Miss Chu will be responsible for protecting this witchcraft. Anyone who attempts to use this witchcraft will be hit by a nuclear bomb, even if they both die together. Duane invited Rudolph to go to the secret nuclear bomb factory with him. In fact, he was escorting the level 9 witchcraft into Prime House's alchemical protective circle. The secret factory is located deep underground, with alchemy circles engraved on top, bottom, left and right, and the protection is indeed tight. I'll add some wizard's magic circles to you to prevent them from being broken through by weird sneak methods. The omniscient scroll listed a long list, and Rudolph followed the protective witchcraft formations on the list and applied them one by one on the outside of the secret factory. By the time he completed the formation, it was already late at night. The next day, Duane delivered a newspaper to the hotel where Rudolph lived. The front page of El European newspaper, West Elba's largest newspaper, carried a headline. Special advisor to the Lords of West Elba, Mr. Furness has officially become a level 9 apostle. The Forge advisors and the Constitutional Army jointly destroyed the Temple of Pain in Malvern City and defeated the evil god of pain head-on. Rudolph was a little confused. Where is Commander-in-Chief Stein's obituary? Oh, Mr. Advisor, that was yesterday's headline. News of the Furnace's promotion quickly spread across the continent. The Black Gold Institute, Rudolph's exclusive trader, Celine looked at the news excitedly. As Rudolph became stronger, Celine's status in the Black Gold Institute became higher and higher. She was the most popular among all the Black Gold Institutes anywhere. The most distinguished senior level. This news was quickly transmitted across the mainland through the channels of the Black Gold Institute. In the kingdom of East Elba, Kedrick looked at King Wenlun, who was much smaller than him, on the throne with some sympathy in his eyes. The new Duke of Blue Lion is making an impassioned statement about how smoothly the reconstruction of the knights is going, but other nobles are showing little interest. There is no point anymore. No matter how smooth the reconstruction of the knights is, it cannot be compared to the promotion of the furnace. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 780. When Rudolph returned to Malvern in the Garonne region, he brought the transfer orders from the Senate and the Constitutional Army. There is a very important committee under the Senate, the Military Affairs and Militia Committee, which has the power to appoint and remove the Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army. Officers at all levels were notified and rushed to the temporary City Hall in Malvern. The original City Hall was destroyed by the Church of Pain. Destroying the iconic building of the alchemist was one of the celebrations of the evil god cult occupying a city. The current City Hall is a conference room in a hotel, which can hold a meeting of 100 people. The Parliament of Malvern Province and Malvern City has not yet been established, and it is temporarily managed by the General Staff. The officers put their military caps on the table and looked at the rostrum in front of them nervously. There are still many priests in the cities around Malvern City. I don't know why the Commander-in-Chief organized this officers' council. They saw the furnace consultant take out a document and hand it to the Chief of Staff of the Eastern Front. The Chief of Staff showed the officers the special anti-counterfeiting seal of the Senate on the document, and then read out the transfer order. General Stein, the former Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army, died in the laboratory due to radiation sickness from the 9th-level alchemy experiment. We mourn General Stein here, and inherit General Stein's will and continue to guard West Elba. After a vote by the Senate Military Affairs and Militia Committee, Prime Minister House appointed General Joel as the Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army of West Elba. Please ask Commander-in-Chief Joel to complete the defense handover of the Garonne region and go to the Luberon region to take office as soon as possible. Before his death, Commander-in-Chief Stein awarded General Het the rank of General and appointed General Het as the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army and the Commander-in-Chief of the Eastern Front. The news came one after another, making the officers of the Constitutional Army overwhelmed. The destruction of the temple, the recovery of Malvern City, the death of Commander-in-Chief Stein, the transfer order of Admiral Joel, and the promotion of Het to Deputy Commander-in-Chief, so many major events, it is difficult for people to accept them for a while. The officers looked at Admiral Het. Since Het got in touch with the furnace consultant, he formed the Blood Vengeance Army and was promoted all the way. Now he has directly become the Deputy Commander-in-Chief. The Blood Vengeance Army is the most powerful force in the Constitution Army. This force is almost entirely composed of wizards. It is the direct force of the furnace consultant in the Constitution Army. Commander-in-Chief Stein died of illness, and everyone should not be sad or panic. Stein donated his relics and left a level 9 wizard weapon for the Constitution Army. Here, we also want to thank Mr. Consultant. It was Mr. Consultant who made Commander-in-Chief Stein's last wish come true. The officers breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Commander-in-Chief Stein left behind valuable wealth. The Constitution Army can continue to manufacture terrifying level 9 alchemical nuclear bombs. This weapon is Zielba's biggest reliance now. Joel spoke and expressed his expectations for the Eastern Front. Hayter took over the speech and said that he would continue to follow Commander-in-Chief Joel's strategy and gradually recover every city in the Garonne region. After the handover, all officers of the Eastern Front sent Commander-in-Chief Joel to board the airship together. Joel and Rudolph walked side by side in the front. Joel said, "Mr. Consultant, are you interested in going to the Luberon region to solve the werewolf problem first? I told Prime Minister House that when the situation in the Garonne region gets better, I will go to the Luberon region with Yvonne." "Miss Yvonne? Could it be?" "Yes, Yvonne can completely master the uniqueness of werewolves and become the only level 9 werewolf." Joel's eyes were full of excitement. If Miss Yvonne could control all werewolves, then Zielba would completely solve the werewolf problem. It's not about solving this wolf-tide war, but that there will be no werewolf threat on the western border for the next few decades. Miss Yvonne overturned people's stereotypes about werewolves. If werewolves were like Miss Yvonne, then werewolves would be the kindest apostles. I hope to see you and Miss Yvonne in the Luberon region as soon as possible. Commander-in-Chief Joel Rudolph approached him and whispered in his ear, "Joel, prepare for your promotion experiment. Prime Minister House and I both hope that you will become a level 9 alchemist as soon as possible." Joel smiled bitterly, "I am also looking for my research direction, but I have been busy with the military affairs of the Constitutional Army in recent years. I have not been able to read the literature systematically, I don't know the cutting-edge theory, and I don't know where the breakthrough direction is for the time being." Rudolph had already prepared a stack of papers and handed it to Joel. He whispered, "Your direction is long-range guidance and ballistics. Long-range guidance plus alchemical nuclear bombs can completely free Elba from war. I will use the omniscience to help you. You should prepare the preliminary work first. After all, the experiment needs to be completed by yourself. In Rudolph's idea, if long-range guidance and apostle ability can be combined, alchemists will not need to do it themselves in the future. They can destroy cities and strongholds with long-range strategic alchemical nuclear bombs. Level 9 long-range guidance, if it can avoid 1 or 2 interferences from level 9 apostles at the end, not too much, even once, it can send the alchemical nuclear bomb to the vicinity of the target, and the threat of the alchemical nuclear bomb will be greatly enhanced. Jorel simply glanced at the document handed to him by the consultant and hurriedly put it away. This is the key secret of his promotion to level 9 apostle, and it is the most detailed summary of omniscience. What he has to do is to summarize and then find a way to derive innovation points. In this era when information mainly relies on letters and newspapers, it is crucial for alchemists to have all the most cutting-edge theoretical foundations. Many alchemists have spent more than 10 years on a subject, only to find that someone on the other side of the continent has already made achievements, which leads to his failure to be promoted. Don't you need me to send you to the Luberon region? In fact, Rudolph can use the star-condensed dragon scale to allow Joel to reach the Luberon region instantly. Joel shook his head. No, Mr. Consultant, I need some time to familiarize myself with the troop organization and secret factories in the Luberon region. I was transferred from the Garon region and I don't know anything about it. Rather than facing so many complex situations rashly, it is better to slowly prepare contingency plans on the way. During this period, if the werewolves organize a large-scale wolf tide, Mr. Consultant will need to help resist it. After getting the information from the consultant, Joel became more determined in his choice. He happened to be studying the theoretical basis given to him by the omniscient authority on the way. Okay, you can prepare with confidence. After saying goodbye to Mr. Consultant, Joel boarded the airship. This airship will fly a long distance to the Luberon region. On the airship, Joel, like House, just had a desire for omniscience, but suppressed his desire. He understood his qualifications and his limits. If it weren't for the help of the furnace consultant, he might have died in the Vulture Mountains, let alone become the commander-in-chief of the Constitutional Army. Now the furnace consultant has found a way to help him become a level 9 alchemist, which is enough. Omniscience is not something an alchemist like him can covet. He knows the secrets of the continent. If he gets the omniscience, the pillar of creation will not spare him. Only a tough guy like the furnace consultant can generously admit that he has obtained the omniscience. After sending Joel away, Hid hurriedly came up and asked, "Mr. Advisor, when will we launch the general offensive?" "Tomorrow, the general offensive will begin tomorrow," Rudolph said. "By the way, Commander Hid, you organize an observation and say that I brought a level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb from the Luberon region, Fatty. The officers have not seen the alchemical nuclear bomb yet, which is just right to give confidence to officers at all levels and deter the enemy. Don't worry about the radiation, I will shield the radiation." "Okay. I will arrange for the officers to visit the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb." The previous level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb directly wiped out the high-level members of the evil god cult. If the evil god cult knew that the constitutional army in the Garon region had another one, I wonder if they would still be unable to sleep. In the secret room of the headquarters, there is a nuclear bomb with a height of 3.3 meters and a diameter of 1.5 meters. The reason why it is in the secret room is to set off the atmosphere and make the alchemical nuclear bomb more mysterious. Officers and soldiers who received first-class and second-class merits all had the opportunity to visit the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb. This news did not need to be blocked, and would quickly spread throughout the Garon region, and let the evil god cult know that Zirba still had an alchemical nuclear bomb. When the secret factory has mastered the process and skillfully used the level 9 uranium ring, the magic weapon, it will produce a steady stream of alchemical nuclear bombs. You can do without some weapons, but you can't do without them. The next day, the excited Constitution Army began a major counterattack. Outside a county city, the Constitution Army completed the encirclement. The temple of this county city is the Worm Nest Temple, and Rudolph was the first to enter the city. The city is full of greenery. If you didn't know that this is the city where the Worm Nest Temple is located, you would have thought you had entered a druid town. The original stone road was scraped off and replaced with grass. There is a crooked path in the middle of the grass, which can only accommodate 2 people walking side by side. The surrounding buildings are covered with climbing plants. Regardless of spring, summer, autumn, or winter, the plants here are lush and green. In the alleys between the houses, there are trees more than 10 meters high, taller than 2- or 3-story houses, making the city shrouded in green. As expected of the goddess of harvest, she is very good at ripening plants, even better than druids. The trunks of those big trees have been hollowed out, and there are some holes on the trunks, and you can see the wriggling insects from the holes. Rudolph walked in the city with absolute stealth, getting closer and closer to the temple. I don't know if the evil god's nest really didn't find it, or if it found it and pretended to be dead. The offensive and defensive positions have changed. In the past, it was the people of Zirba fleeing, and now it is the priests fleeing. There are not many priests and believers in the city, only about 10,000. God cannot bleed, and the evil god's nest will not tell the priests and believers that they are no match for the Constitution Army. In order to maintain faith, he will only say that if you are pious, you will live and die with the temple. The square in the city center has now completely turned into a forest. Between the tree trunks, insects are flying in and out, which is very lively. A dull sound suddenly sounded in the forest, bang. The bone-eroding scepter hit the grass, and Rudolph lifted the absolute concealment. A circle of shock waves was emitted from the blood-red ruby on the top of the scepter. The shock wave quickly spread to the surroundings, and with Rudolph as the center, a circular ripple appeared on the grass. A terrifying breath suddenly erupted in the temple surrounded by the forest. This breath was so amazing that even the Constitution Army outside the city could clearly sense that an inexplicably powerful force had appeared in the temple. In the forest, in the grass, and in the vines, dense insects suddenly crawled out. The moment these insects appeared, they suddenly rushed towards the outsider Rudolph. However, these insects suddenly fell into chaos in front of Rudolph. Scorpio Forbidden Spell, Bone Erosion Revenge. This forbidden spell seems to be specially designed to restrain the evil god. The evil god's divine power is gathered from the power of faith, which comes from the sacrifice of sacrifices and the prayers of priests. The originally complete divine power has become chaotic, like a thick rope scattered into strands. Most of the power of faith is not voluntarily dedicated to the evil god's insect nest. In particular, the foundation of the power of faith in this temple is the sacrifice of the citizens of the city. Those resentful powers of faith, under the stimulation of the Scorpio Forbidden Spell, have their own will and are no longer obedient slaves. The insect closest to Rudolph even spoke out of great resentment. "I shouldn't die, I don't want to die." More and more insects made creepy hisses. "Why are my nostrils so itchy? What is crawling out? Why are the bugs biting me to death? Where is my son? Ah, why are there bugs crawling out of his eyes? Who is the goddess of harvest?" The hatred spread around, and just like the evil god's pain, the faith power of the evil god's insect nest became chaotic. The trees around the temple could no longer maintain their lush appearance, and the leaves turned yellow and withered, and the leaves fell one after another. This is a manifestation of the exhaustion of the power of faith. The trees seemed to be steamed dry, dehydrated in an instant, bare, dry, and hunched, ugly and bleak. The bugs in the trunk broke through the fragile bark, revealing the scene inside. There were nests of bugs, and there were groups of dark bugs. Countless bugs flew up, covering the temple under a heavy cloud of bugs. There were cracked patterns on the hexagonal glass of the temple, and the situation inside the temple was not good. If the evil god insect nest had not come in person, this little power alone would not be a match for Rudolph's star power. With the enhancement of the bone-eating revenge, Rudolph's star power is much stronger than that of an ordinary 9th level apostle. Everyone is less than 10th level immortal, so it is not necessarily that one is afraid of the other. The priests in the city felt the fear from the depths of their souls, and the power of faith was collapsing. They left their hiding places one after another and fled crying in the withered city. The Constitution Army would not give them this opportunity. The airships opened fire crazily, bombarding the insect cloud and the priests. Without high-level priests, the resistance of these insect nest priests was very weak. Rudolph looked up at the insect cloud until the starry sky was covered by the insect cloud. He raised the scepter, and there was a strong Scorpio star power on the top of the scepter. Pure blue flames spurted out from the top of the scepter. The flames were like an expanding umbrella, instantly covering 1/5 of the city and rushing towards the insect cloud. Under the impact of the temperature exceeding 30,000 degrees, all the insects turned into ashes in an instant. Wherever the blue sparks passed, large areas of vacuum appeared. Until the center of the temple, there was a black spider that actually resisted the burning of the forbidden sparks. The spider's compound eyes exuded a strong venom. Furnace! Furnace! Rudolph heard a woman's voice. The main body of the evil god insect nest is a monster with a human head and a spider body. The voice heard at this time is the voice of the evil god insect nest. The scorching angel walked out of the flames, holding a red giant sword, and slashed the black spider fiercely. After waiting for a while, Rudolph shook his head regretfully. He didn't wait for the evil god insect nest to cast more power. It seems that the evil god insect nest has abandoned the city, and Rudolph has put too much pressure on him. The evil god is above level 9 and below immortality. Rudolph has the enhancement of bone-eroding hatred, which is also above level 9 and below immortality. Red steam is gushing out from the red giant's sword. The temple was reduced to ruins, charred and empty, without a single insect. It felt so good to have power. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 781. The battle is over, and the god is bleeding. The believers stepped on the dry grass, stunned. They looked at the 100-meter-high seraphim in the distance, watched the temple being smashed, and watched the smoke rising from the temple. The god was bleeding, proving that the goddess of harvest was not as great as the doctrine said, and proved that the goddess of harvest was not omnipotent. Rudolph floated in the air, looked around, and used very little star power to release a mild forbidden spell on the entire city. I replace faith with hatred. The evil god's faith is very stubborn and difficult to eradicate under normal circumstances. Fortunately, Rudolph's forbidden spell has the ability to influence the mind. He can replace the believer's faith with hatred. When the believers start to blaspheme, they can never go back. The scepter emits a red light, and the light of the forbidden spell covers the entire city. The believers remembered their families who were sacrificed by the evil god cult, remembered the abuse of them by the priests, and remembered the exploitation of them by the evil god cult. In the midst of hatred, the believers no longer had faith in the evil god, only deep hatred remained. They turned back into citizens, but after being brainwashed by the evil god faith and influenced by Rudolph's forbidden spell of hatred, their spirits became sensitive and fragile. The citizens chased the constitutional army and cried to them about the sufferings of the past few days. Moreover, they also asked to join the constitutional army to avenge the evil god cult. The officers of the constitutional army rejected their request, saying that the weapons and equipment of the alchemists needed training and learning, and could not be mastered in a short time. The Worm Nest Church confiscated all weapons in the city and prohibited citizens from privately keeping firearms, otherwise they would be punished for blasphemy. After waking up, the citizens had no firearms, so they went home and took out kitchen knives, picked up sticks, moved stones, and followed the constitutional army to rush towards the priests. The bone-eroding revenge can effectively help believers recall the pain they suffered in the evil god cult, awaken the believers' hatred for the evil god cult, and thus help them break away from the influence of faith. There were cries all around, which were the cries of the believers after they woke up. Hearing the crying, Rudolf felt depressed. He was ready to leave the city and come back to see the believers when they were better. As for the priests, Rudolf did a scouting and found that there were not even level 7 priests here. The constitutional army was enough to deal with the priests here, so he flew out of the city with confidence. Outside the city, Rudolf found that the constitutional army surrounded several warehouses. There is food here. A lot of food. The soldiers found several large warehouses in the suburbs, which contained food that the Church of the Insect Nest had not had time to deal with. These foods are enough for the population of several cities to eat for half a year, and are one of the most scarce materials in the Garonne region now. After signing a peace agreement with East Elba, West Elba can buy food from East Elba, but the quantity is not much. In the battle at the entrance of Vulture Valley, too many knights and nobles died in East Elba. Just issuing death pensions consumed a lot of money and food, and they did not have much surplus food to sell to West Elba. The druid witch hunter was excited and carefully inspected the barn. The long pole was inserted deep into the barn to ensure that the grains had no side effects. After a few hours of careful inspection, the druid witch hunter produced a report. The druid believed that these grains had no other problems except ripening, and they were edible. Hayter looked at the report and said to Rudolf, "Mr. Consultant, it seems that your deterrent power is too strong. The priests of the evil god cult don't have time to deal with such large barns." In order to ensure that this was not a conspiracy of the evil god cult, Rudolf asked the puppet Larry to do a divination. The divination result was very good. It was indeed that the Insect Nest Church collapsed too quickly, and they did not do anything with these grains. As a 9th level Zodiac Scorpion wizard, the simple evil god gaze was no match for Rudolf, and the temple could not protect so many priests. Low-level priests were cannon fodder, and high-level priests were very cherishing their lives and had already run away. The soldiers cleaned up the city deeply. Large lawn mowers were moving on the road, clearing away the tall dead grass on the road, revealing the original ground. The floor tiles were damaged by the roots and were warped everywhere, and they needed to be repatted. The vines climbing along the wall were cut off, revealing the wall and windows. The wooden window frames were covered with dead branches, which also needed to be replaced. The evil god cult occupied this place for a month, causing huge losses to West Elba. The Garonne Regional Council will relocate part of the population to restore the city's production. The factories outside the city were not damaged much. The trapped priests would have taken over all the factories. The work of the trapped church had not yet begun, and these factories returned to the hands of the alchemists again. We should thank the evil god cult. They are really ready to run the city, so the infrastructure and factories here have not been damaged much. After handing over the city to the follow-up troops, the main force of the Constitutional Army set off again and headed for the next city. The Constitutional Army recaptured cities one by one in a devastating way. The horrible temples in the past were as fragile as straw huts in front of the Zodiac Scorpio Wizard Furnace. The furnace had similar abilities to the knights, and could launch attacks that surpassed the 9th level apostles. The terrifying forbidden sparks could melt temples one after another, and the tall seraph angel wielded a giant sword, which could smash the remaining artifacts in the temples with one sword. The evil god cult did not dare to organize a large-scale counterattack. Zirba had a 9th level alchemical bomb, and gathering a large number of priests would be a death sentence. So the evil god cult found that they had only one last way left, which was to escape. Just like the Great Escape from the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, the priests who came across the sea from the southern continent are also fleeing. The speed of the airship is too fast, much faster than the priests migrating on the ground. Especially after retaking two large coal-producing cities, the Constitutional Army no longer has the pressure of supply. Their airships can fly at full speed, and the supply airships will bring power coal continuously. On the ground is a priest escape team that stretches for several kilometers. These priests have no protection from high-level priests and temples, and will only become unilateral bombing targets of airships. There is no need for Rudolph to take action. Driven by hatred, the Constitutional Army's revenge fire is very fierce. The low-level priests looked up in despair, shielding their hands from the dazzling sunlight, and looking at the airships in the sky. These airships are flying giants that are killing people, with a breath of oppression and death. The soldiers of the Constitutional Army moved the bombs to the deck and stacked them into bomb piles. The movable crawler will continuously send bombs to the outside of the guardrail and drop them from the outside of the crawler. The soldiers controlling the crawler skillfully adjusted the length of the crawler protruding from the airship to control the landing point. Bombs fell to the ground one by one, and the gunners excitedly observed the results of the bombing. The bombs exploded in the priest team, and one bomb could cover a range of dozens of meters. The priests used simple divine arts, and their low-level divine arts were no match for mass-produced alchemical shells. Whether it was the trapped priest or the annihilated priest, they would be swallowed by the shells after struggling for a few seconds. The expensive rocket launcher did not fire, and the soldiers used the airship machine gun to sweep the ground. The long bullet belt was fed into the machine gun and turned into an alchemical bullet that shot into the priest's body. The evil god could not bless them, the temple was demolished, and they were not within the faith radiation range of the temple. Some airships were so low, much lower than the safe altitude stipulated in the combat regulations, that the officers of the Constitutional Army did not correct it, and they did not care about the possible counterattacks. The danger was controllable, and this was a one-sided revenge. Revenge made all officers and soldiers extremely excited. Those maintenance soldiers who did not have artillery and machine guns even shot at the ground with rifles. They grinned, and saliva flowed from the corners of their mouths. No one thought there was anything wrong with this madness, only Rudolph, who was most sensitive to hatred, found that there was too much hatred, so much that he felt uncomfortable. Rudolph stood at the bow, frowned, and looked at the battlefield. Faintly, he felt something was wrong, but he couldn't tell. When destroying the Temple of Pain, the evil god cursed him painfully, saying that he would be eroded by pain one day. Now seeing the revenge of the Constitutional Army, especially the revenge against low-level priests who had almost no ability to resist, Rudolph noticed the chaos of the star power. The revenge of equal strength will make the Scorpio star power more excited. Rudolph had no psychological burden in killing priests above level 5. Fighting against the 8th level cardinal priests would only make Rudolph more excited. Destroying the temple made Rudolph feel the pleasure of revenge. Destroying cities one by one, killing priests one by one on the battlefield, let the hatred in his star power settle and accumulate. This would certainly make his forbidden spell, Bone Erosion Revenge, more powerful, but it also caused his anxiety at this moment. Hatred is a negative emotion, an extreme emotion that is particularly easy to affect oneself. He wanted to take action, against these low-level priests. This was an abnormal emotion. He understood the desire for revenge of the Constitutional Army, but it was always not good for him to take action against the 2nd or 3rd level priests. Rudolph frowned. Hatred can certainly stimulate people's potential, but it is easy to make people fall into mania. Rudolph turned and walked towards the cabin, where he saw Yvonne. "Yvonne, I need your help." Ever since she knew that she would go to the Luberon region in a while, Yvonne has been preparing for her promotion. In fact, there is nothing to prepare. Rudolph will pave the way for her. She just can't stand too much killing, otherwise it will arouse her animal nature. "Rudolph, what's wrong with you?" Yvonne wiped the fine beads of sweat from Rudolph's forehead and asked, "How can I help you?" "I am restless," it seems that the painful curse is real. If I indulge myself, I may be controlled by hatred. I think I need a little adjustment and a little tenderness. Seeing Rudolph waving his hand to set up an anti-detection witchcraft array, Ivan smiled and said, "Rudolph, do you also need to consolidate your humanity? Especially need?" Half an hour later, Ivan collapsed on the bed. Rudolph shook his head. "Ivan, you must be promoted. Am I too strong?" Ivan looked at Rudolph with resentment, and then split out a clone. "When you became a Hercules wizard, I was very happy. I finally didn't have to endure it. In fact, I never dared to ask for too much. When you became a Cepheus wizard, I was a little tired of dealing with it. Now that you have become a Zodiac wizard, I even feel sad. I feel that I am too weak. You are really too strong. So you have so many psychological activities? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Before, I was afraid of undermining your self-confidence. Werewolves have special physiques, so I could only endure it. Now I am afraid that you will be proud. You are really too strong." The 5 Ivans are like quintuplets, dazzling Rudolph. Outside, artillery fire is flying, and in the undetectable cabin, artillery fire is flying. After helping Rudolph consolidate his humanity, he left the cabin contentedly. This time, it was not so hard to accept the Constitutional Army bombing the priest's fleeing team. The suffering that the evil god cult inflicted on Zirba this time came back to them, and this was what they deserved. The priests from the southern continent died one by one in the explosion. Soon, the pursuit came to the vicinity of the trapped iron wall. This is the dividing line between the Eagle's Beak Peninsula and the mainland. The remaining priests suddenly became excited. They finally saw the trapped iron wall. They thought that as long as they passed through the trapped iron wall, they would be safe. There are 3 temples to the south of the trapped iron wall. The White Demon Temple in Malone City, the trapped temple on the artificial volcano, and the painful temple in the mudflats to the east. It stopped all airships because he saw a strange phenomenon in the sky to the south. The gaze of the 3 evil gods really thinks highly of me. Above the dark clouds, the evil god Pain was dropping rotten flesh. On the rising mountain, the evil god Kundan was spewing magma. And the evil god White Devil was shining the white light in the dark clouds. Across the Kundan iron wall, the Seraph Angel and the 3 blood gods were staring at each other. Hader asked, "Mr. Consultant, are we going to continue to fight south?" As a Dani City native, he wanted to recapture the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, but he also knew that there might be accidents with the 3 evil gods blocking the way. If there were no furnace consultants, the Constitutional Army would only dare to come to the Kundan Iron Wall with the belief of using a level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb to perish together. Rudolph sensed the divine power on the opposite side, asked the puppet Larry to do divination, and shook his head. If a fight breaks out here, more than 3 evil gods will come to watch. The Church of Oblivion has transformed Belfour City into a temple, and the evil god Oblivion is also paying attention to this place, ready to descend in person at any time. Rudolph thought for a moment and said, "I know you are anxious, but we can't achieve it in one go. The strength of the evil god cult is too strong. Let's stop here. As long as we wait a little longer, until the secret factory is proficient in using the magic tools left by Commander-in-Chief Stein, and when more alchemical nuclear bombs are produced, the Eagle's Beak Peninsula will definitely return to our hands. There is no need to take risks here now, time belongs to us. Alchemists will continue to become stronger, and the evil god cult has always been at this level. The counterattack against the werewolves is about to begin. I will go to the Luberon region first, and after solving the wolf tide, I will deal with the more troublesome evil god cult." Hyde nodded and issued a retreat order. The evil god cult had no intention of pursuing, and they must have breathed a sigh of relief. With the trapped iron wall as the boundary, the 2 sides once again formed a balance and temporarily stalemate.